doubt very seriously that anybody is going to say to you, we're not going to give you any kind of earnest money. But if they do say that to you and you say, well, then, we won't have a valid contract, you'd be dead wrong. And I don't want you to be dead wrong. But you could say, it's our policy. This is the way we're going to do this, and kind of insist on it. Now, the other thing that you...
Steve?
Go ahead.
I got a question about that. In Rochester area, at least, ours is a hard date of, you have 2 calendar days to get your earnest deposit in, and it is in the contract. Is it still?
Yeah, and that's the way it is here, but you can put in, you can put in 0. And you still have an enforceable contract. Now, if somebody decided to do something like that, and it was rubbing, say you're the listing agent, and it's rubbing you the wrong way, but you want to get these people sold, accept the contract, and then call the attorney and say, hey, look, these people are trying to get in here without any earnest money, and what I'd like you to do is write a letter to the other attorney saying I've reviewed and I approve of this contract, with the exception exception that we are going to have a deposit check deposited in Howard Hanna's escrow account in the amount of $1,000, $5,000, or whatever. So what I'm trying to do for you here is keep you from getting into a headbutting thing with the agent on the other side, but still being able to move forward. Okay, so I am a big proponent of doing more than I think some people want to do. They always say, let's have the attorneys handle that. I despise that little phrase. I don't like it. But in this particular case, this is one of those things where I'd say, okay, all right, we need to get this on paper. We need to get this thing sold. Let's go over and, later on we'll have the attorney's approval and we'll see if we can get it changed that way. So that's one way around it. And I probably spent way too much time talking about that because it very rarely happens. Yeah, competent parties, meeting of the minds, consideration. Don't know why that's okay. So those are the basic things for making sure that you have a contract. But again, you can write a contract on a bar napkin and it's enforceable if we get everybody to sign it. I would not recommend that, right, Jennifer? We don't do that here in Albany. Okay, so today we're going to look at this, and mostly I think we're going to be talking about contracts from the point of view of representing the buyer. But I think it's important when we have these discussions that we also have a pretty good idea in our head what's going on over on the seller's side. So I'll talk with you a little bit about what's going on over on the seller's side every once in a while, but I'll hopefully point out to you that we're looking at it from that side. We're also going to talk about the presentation. We'll talk about closing techniques. And also, I don't know what it's like out in the rest of the state, but it seems like every purchase offer that's getting put together today is a multiple offer type of a thing. And with multiple offers, I don't know, do you guys out there, are you using escalation clauses? Yes? No? And maybe some not. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about escalation clauses at some point, and we'll also talk a little bit about multiple offer procedures and what your obligation as an agent to disclose to everybody that we're in a multiple offer situation. So one of the things that I hope that you're going to do before you ever get to the point of writing a purchase offer is having a buyer consultation to include pre-qualification. So is it first priority all the way across New York State? Okay. So one of the things that I do when I'm going to meet with a buyer, and I still do a little bit of this because I have friends that insist on me helping their kid or whatever. So our representative, his name is Brandon. So I'll say to him, hey, look at Saturday morning, I'm going to be at the office at 10 o'clock. I'm going to meet with these people that want to buy a house. And I'm going to tell them, so why don't you just like wander through, like you're just wandering through. And then I'm going to invite you in. And then I'm going to say, hey, look, this is Brandon. He's our mortgage representative. Why don't we have him just talk with you a little bit about how that whole process works. And invariably, he sits down with them and gets them started. And the majority of the time, they end up just going with them. Now, every once in a while they say, oh, we're working with Homestead or we're working with M&T or whatever. And Brendan will still sit and talk with them about how the process works and then still, you know, be available later in case things don't work out or they say, you know what, he's got a pretty good rate or he's got pretty good terms. So that's the way I do my pre-qualification thing. Another thing that I want to warn you is if you're doing this buyer consultation, which again, I highly recommend, then make sure that you stay within their budget. You don't push them over the top. Just recently, my daughter called me and said, hey, I got a friend of mine at work that wants you to help her buy a house, she and her husband. And I said, all right, I can do that. So I met with them, and one of the first things that they told me was the reason they left this other agent is because this other agent kept pushing them way over what they could afford. And they just got annoyed with it. And they finally, and they didn't even tell the agent, they just said, you know what, we're out of here, we're gonna go find somebody else. And I ended up selling them a $245,000 house because some agent wasn't being, you know, kind of smart about it. So, you know, you're gonna do your buyer's consultation, you're gonna find out how much, you know, what their budget is and be true to it, you know, stick with it. Now, to the right of the screen there, I see make sure they get the basic forms in advance, especially the contracts. One of the things that I learned early on is don't shock them with a contract, you know, at some point, just thrust this document in front of them and say, here, sign this. So when I do my buyer consultation, I give them all the copies of the agency disclosure, 48-hour disclosure, the actual contract form, all of that stuff. I make sure I share it with them, and I go over it very, you know, briefly. I wouldn't even say paragraph by paragraph, you know, mostly where there's blanks and stuff. I tell them this is what we're going to accomplish when you sign this, and it works out pretty good with them. And then when I get ready, you know, when the rubber meets the road, that day that they end up writing a purchase offer, then it's not like, hey, wait a minute, this is one of the things that happened to me not the very first time, but one of the first times I wrote up a purchase offer. It was on a Friday afternoon, and right at the very top of the contract, I don't know what yours says, but it says, this is a legally binding contract, and we recommend that you contact your attorney before signing. And I had never really even paid attention to that. So this guy goes, he says, I'm not going to sign this until, and I'm like, oh, well, and at that time, we didn't have attorney's approval clauses in there. You had to insert that, even though it was contract law, common law, that you had 3 days anyway. So he wouldn't sign it. And I said, well, this property just came on the market. It's a Friday afternoon. What attorney is going to be around? They're probably in some gin mill someplace like I want to be. And we're probably not going to be able to get a hold of them. So turned out we weren't able to get a hold of them, and turned out the house got sold, you know. So, you know, you'll know the form and you'll explain to them, it does say that across the top of my form here, but there is an attorney's approval clause that protects you. In our case, I think it's paragraph 16 or something, and you're going to be protected with that. So you can put them at ease at that point. So that's why it's good to go over all of those forms, show it to them, and they're going to feel a little bit better about the way things are. All right, next screen here. Oh, gaining their confidence at your buyer consultation. One of my favorite phrases right across the top there. They don't care what you know until they know you care. And that is so, so important. So please, please, please do everything. You know, I've seen a lot of real estate people want to talk about how smart they are and how many awards they've gotten and how much real estate they've sold and how many years they've been doing this business. And sometimes when people ask me that, like the other agent on the other side, I'm almost reluctant to tell them how many years I've been doing it. Not because I think I'm old. It's mostly because I just don't want them to think that, you know, I'm smarter than them or anything. I don't want them to think that I know more about all of this. I want them to just relax and be able to do, oh, Courtney, who's that cute little cherub? What a beautiful little girl. I don't know if you can see Courtney's screen, but I presume that's your daughter. Yeah, so her daughter's in the picture. That's nice. Nice. So anyway, they don't care what you know until they know you care. And I remember one time when I was starting out in the real estate business, my manager's name was Dick Rando, and he was always sitting up in the front office and it usually had his door open. And I was going up to put mail in the mailbox, and he was sitting there, and there was a young couple sitting there. And since the door was open, and since I'm a nosy type of a person, I happened to overhear what he was saying. And he goes, "I'm not going to sell you a house." And that caught I looked over and I go, "He's not going to sell my house. No. What's he doing?" And I saw either boyfriend or husband look at her, and he goes, "I'm going to help you to buy a house." And that was the first exposure for me to consultative selling. So, I mean, I use that, and I've been using that ever since 1982. I said, "I'm not going to sell you a house. I'm going to help you to buy a house. I'm going to help you to buy the house that you want. If they don't like this house, I'm not going to try to sell it to them." You know, I listen to them in the buyer consultation meeting, and they tell me what they want. And have you heard this expression, buyers are liars? You know, I hate that phrase, but they kind of are. But you listen to them, and then you listen to more of what they say. In fact, one of the little clues, I'll give you this one too. When a client or anybody that you're talking to uses a pronoun, you start to listen very carefully there. You should be listening carefully anyway. But you listen very carefully there because they're exposing their values when they start to use a pronoun. So if they say "I," what follows next is what they believe or what they like or what they want or what they desire or what they love. "We," same thing. This is how we live. This is what we look for. So it's important when you're listening to them and that pronoun comes up to listen to them. So anyway, you listen to everything that they want, and then you try to help them to buy a house. And when you help them to buy a house, that might mean, and that's what I said in here, you might have to talk them out of this house. I have been on more than one occasion in a house. In fact, there was one in Troy. It was a young lady, and she was going to be living by herself. And she wanted to buy this house that was right next to a very bad apartment complex, renowned for a lot of drug dealings and a lot of issues and stuff. And I didn't know that apartment complex was there when I showed her the house. But once I got there, I looked up on the hill and I thought, oh boy, too close. If this was my daughter, I'd be shaking my head no. So she was like, "I love this house. I want to buy this house." And I said to her, "Cindy, I think we should move on. You wanted to, what you call the safe neighborhood." And then she ended up buying the house. But you know why? She told me, she goes, "My mother lives right around the corner." So I stopped right there and I thought, okay, that trumps it. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. So, you know, I even will tell people in my buyer consultation that I might try to keep them from getting in their own way, you know, buying a house that they don't necessarily, maybe shouldn't be buying. And I tell them, I might point that out to them, but then I always add on at the very end, "This is America. You can do what you want to. So if you want to buy that house," after I say to you, "Didn't you tell me that you specifically did not want a railroad going through your backyard? You told me that, didn't you? And what is that out there? That's a railroad, right? So maybe we shouldn't be buying this." "No, Steve, we love the house." I said, "Okay, fine, enough said." You know, so I sometimes do try to talk them out of buying a house, and I let them know I might do that during the buyer consultation.
Just because they're brand new, Steve, I just want to remind you that my newer agents, be very careful. Fair housing. Remember, you can't point out criminal activity or crime in the neighborhood, but you can point them to sites that they can find that information. You can't, you can inform them about what's around them, by making them aware. Maybe we should walk this street at 9 o'clock at night and see how you feel about it. That's a great way to address a problem neighborhood. Try it at 8 o'clock, noon, 5 and 9. But be very careful about steering, redlining, and making.
Thank you, Maggie. That's a good point. Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I would add on to that. You cannot deny fact. Okay, so was a guy murdered in this house last month across the street? You can't, and it's common. If it was, that to be true, you have to admit to it. So yeah, so neighborhoods and stuff, you do have to be careful of, with fair housing. But you know, if say for example, maybe a better example would be we want a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath house, and this one's only got 1 bath or 1.5 baths. You might want to point that out to them. You had told me that you wanted a house like that. Another thing where I do that kind of fatherly thing, and I had this happen out in East Greenbush, this young couple, and this gets a little weird, but this young couple I was showing a house to, they were married and they had this house, and the master bedroom was upstairs in the back, all the way in the back, and then there were 3 other bedrooms way down low on the other side of the house, and they wanted to buy the house. And I said, "Are you going to have children?" I said, "I know that sounds," and they said, "Yeah, we hope to raise a family." I said, "Well, you know, the thing that bothers me about this, because I've been a dad, and in the night when one of your babies has got a fever and crying, you want to be able to hear them, you know, you want to be close to that bedroom, you know, and having them that far apart, I don't know, think about that for a little bit." And they did, and they actually thanked me later for saying, "Yeah, you know, it doesn't really fit what we're trying to build, and thank you for pointing that out." So those are the things, you know, as far as gaining their confidence. And although I was going to say not sell them the first house, this year on 2 different occasions, gave the house to both are young ladies, friends of my daughters, and the first house they saw. First house, didn't even look at any other houses. And that's a little bit weird, but sometimes, you know, you might say something about, shouldn't we look at more houses, maybe just a couple? Helping them to reach a decision. This was something that was one of the panels that was me. You can read it, tell the buyers ahead of time about any known negatives, diffuse when the property is shown, help them see the possibilities, create involvement, let them envision their future in the house, allow time to explore the house and the neighborhood and the nearby amenities. That part I like. You know, I like to let them take their time. I think you probably all have heard this. The more time they take in the house, the more they're probably starting to kind of dig it. Although I do remember another agent before I was in any training program saying, "Stevie, if they want to go back for the 3rd time, they're trying to talk themselves out of it, you know, but the 2nd time is okay. But if they want to go back a 3rd time," he goes, "they're probably trying to talk themselves out of it." But I put a note over there, be careful. If they have real objections, I don't want you to appear to be trying to get them to do something they don't want to do. You know, if they say they don't like it, they don't like it. And I don't know how many of you have already started showing houses, and maybe you've shown a few houses, but sometimes where you have the sellers or the buyers saying to you, "Geez, I'm really sorry, but I don't like this house." And I tell them, "You don't have to apologize to me. It doesn't hurt my feelings one bit, one way or the other. It doesn't matter. If you don't like this house, that's cool. We'll move on." So sometimes they feel like, you know, they're going to go take a look at a house just because you want them to or whatever. So I don't see that there's any questions or anything yet. Is that correct, Maggie and Jen? Good.
I'm not seeing any questions at the moment.
I must be doing a fantastic job, yes?
Yeah, so do you guys know what he means by negatives on that previous slide? You know, so pointing out any of the negatives, do you guys know what those are?
Jeez.
Do you guys have any idea? I'd love to hear from somebody. What do you think some of those negatives might be that you'd be pointing out?
That would be fun to hear that.
Come on, guys, because this is what you do every day.
How about like fuses instead of electrical box?
Great.
Evidence of water in the basement in the past.
Okay, and you can sometimes see that in the pictures, or maybe you've been on a tour in the home and you've seen it. Great. What else?
I would say whether it's septic or public sewer, public water or well water. I mean, those are very...
I don't think of those as negatives, to be honest, Dan.
Well, I'll tell you, that's something that somebody needs to know, because they need to understand if they're going to have their septic pumped every 2 years.
Right, but I don't think of it as a negative. It's just informing.
But here's what I would say, Maggie, to that, and I'm kind of digging where Dan's going with this, and my tagline on my I stole it from somebody in California 100 years ago, but my tagline was, if it matters to you, it matters to me. So if this person says that we had a well and we had trouble with it, then that's a problem for them. So we kind of do have to say, well.
Oh, I would inform them. I just don't think of it as a negative because where we live, there's so much well and septic.
That is true.
We have so much that it's such a common thing here. It's not an uncommon. But informing is different than a negative. So another negative you might look at is if you see a house and you've got a grade that comes toward the house and you can see the water line in the yard coming and you can see a water line against the foundation, you may have a problem.
Right.
So it's something to make you aware of. I can see this water. We don't know that it doesn't have French drain. It's not let away, but it doesn't look good.
Yeah. Roman had an idea. Roman, did you get your idea in? Or?
Well, I was going to say, sometimes there are captions in the remarks section that say forever wild. Well, that may be not exactly true, because maybe just because there's an empty field behind a house today, who knows if down the road sometime and somebody doesn't exactly want to be very close to their neighbors, a development starts going up right in that open field.
In other words, it gets declassified at a later date, something you can't control.
Yeah, I lived in a neighborhood like that, and we thought that it would never be buildable because it was swamp. Well, there's now a whole condo complex in there.
Forever ain't forever.
Okay, forever ain't forever.
Right.
So be thinking about what negatives could be. That could be the roof, could be the plumbing, it might be the furnace is 30 years old, it might be a property line, it might be an egress, it could be the fuse box or the electrical panel. Or so those are the kinds of things you may want to make them aware of before you ever go to a house.
Sometimes there's something like, geez, we wish we had a half bath on the first floor. If I had a half bath, we'd be interested in this house. Say, well, take a look at this one room. It's pretty big, and it looks like the plumbing is, the upstairs bathroom's over there. Maybe you could build one in here. Maybe you could put a half bath in here. Or, so being upbeat about stuff like that. But again, like I said, if somebody's got an objection to the house and you keep pushing it, you may push them over to another real estate person. So you got to be a little bit careful with that. But by the same time, we've all had, anybody who's been in this business, we've shown people houses after houses, and we're like, God, are you gonna buy or not? And I remember one time not too long ago, a couple of years ago, I had a guy, his name was Mike, and I go to him, I go, Mike, I actually sell houses for a living. And we were on a deck, and he looks at me and he goes, what? And I go, I sell houses for a living. I don't show houses for a living. And all of a sudden he started smiling. He goes, am I looking at too many houses? And I said, well, we've seen a few that I think fit. You might want to pull the trigger eventually. And he did. But sometimes we have to remind him that, and I'm, of all people, should talk. My wife and I bought our first house before I was in real estate. And I am not kidding you. I didn't go with her on all of them, but she looked at over 40 houses. And I thought, oh, my Lord. I hated the real estate person. This was back when you could smoke cigarettes. And so her name was Harriet. She would pull up in this big old station wagon. I don't know how we got her. My wife must have got her. We'd get in, and the first thing she'd do is light up a cigarette. I'm sitting in the back, my wife's like, and then she would be smoking a cigarette while she's walking through the houses, showing houses to us. And we bought a house where the two people were sitting there, older people, and they were sitting there smoking. And we don't smoke. It took us like 10 years to get the smoke smell out of our house. Anyway, I digress. I'm sorry. And thanks for kicking in, everybody. Let's do more of that. If you got something you want to say, I think, I guess we don't have everybody visually on the screen. So if you do want to say something, there's a button at the bottom of your page for raise your hand or something. And Maggie, you'll see that.
Yeah, you can either do this too, or you can use the chat box, or you can use the reaction. You could use a thumbs up or something to get my attention.
Can you see everybody's faces?
I can, because I have two screens.
Oh, okay,
So all their faces are on one and your PowerPoint's on another.
okay, I got you. Okay,
I'm
good.
fancy.
You are. Okay, crafting the offers. Oh, sellers have a variety of reasons for placing their home on the market. Motivations vary. It's often not just about the money. And again, I think what they're trying to address here is that if you're writing up a purchase offer and you can figure out why these people are selling, it might help you with your purchase offer. And there's nothing wrong with saying to the agent on the other side, what's the deal with these people? Where are they going? What's going on with them? You know, they just bought it 3 years ago, or, you know, geez, it seems like a pretty nice house, or, you know, whatever. So Roman has a question right now. Is that the thumbs up?
I have clients that are repeat or they're repeat clients, and anyway, we submitted an offer on a property that is technically an estate. Well, the problem became that there were 3 siblings, 2 of which had the power of signing, 1 did not. Anyway, what happened was the one sibling went to court to become the sole signer for anything to do with the house. And this took a long time. Finally, this person got his court order that he's the only signer. But in the entire process here of my buyer waiting and waiting and waiting, well, we just had to move on to the next one so that we're not wasting everybody's time.
Right, and that's what happens with. In fact, as you look at this panel, buyers and sellers can withdraw from offers at any time prior to acceptance and even after acceptance. You know, if people aren't performing, then obviously, but it becomes a legal thing. You know, so then we have to turn to the attorney. This is one place where I will say, let's have the attorneys handle this. You go to them and say, look, I think we're going to need to either declare time is of the essence or get out of there. And as far as Roman's example is concerned, it really doesn't matter what the reason is. You know, it doesn't matter if they're having a spat between, you know, brothers and sisters, and they're having a struggle as to who's going to control this, who's going to be the POA or the executor or whatever. You know, it's just got to be, you know, it's got to be resolved. And if your buyer is not being served, you have to be attentive to them. And if they're saying, hey, look, we got to get out of this, you know, you do have to explain to them. You can't be a lawyer, obviously, but you do have to explain to them, we're going to talk to your attorney about this, but there could be some legal ramifications, some of them negative, because sometimes people feel like they want to get out and it's not really, they don't have a real good reason. I mean, they think they do. In their mind, they do. And you got to say to them, well, you know, this is not uncommon and unfortunate. Like this COVID thing, for example. You know, we all have that disclosure from NYSAR now that says the amendment to the contract that says that an inspection can't be done, then everybody agrees to extend the contingency a certain amount of days until we can resolve the COVID issue within the confines of the people that are involved in this contract. So when you sign that, you're basically saying that you're going to be patient. So yeah, buyers and sellers can withdraw from the offer certainly prior to acceptance, and then they've got a tagline here. It's important to respond both sides in a timely fashion, and I do agree with that. God bless you, Spencer. Okay. Yeah.
And
very
for
much.
those of you who aren't familiar with the COVID forms, go back to your managers. A lot of you haven't even seen the contracts. This is why we want you working on the contracts. Go back with your managers and discuss those so they can clarify how they're being used in your area and how to use them to their best advantage.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The next panel, crafting the offer, putting the offer together. So they've told you that they love the house. I'm just showing you the benefits of this buyer consultation. If you do a really good job in your buyer consultation, they're going to know what's going to happen. You described all the steps. You described to them, you know, here's how we're going to do it. And if they look at you and go, hey, wait, what's going on here? Say, okay, do you remember when we got together? I told you that we'll write the purchase offer. There's going to be an attorney's approval in here. Within 5 days, you're going to have to go after your mortgage contingency or your mortgage application. They're going to know all this stuff. It's going to run nice and smooth. They had put this thing on here, keep calm and think win-win. I just wanted to say this one thing. And maybe it's just the competitive edge that is in me. I'm not real big on the win-win thing. I'm real big on my client winning. I like that. I like that a lot. If the other client, the seller's client, is not quote unquote winning, getting everything they want, hitting a home run or whatever, gee, that's too bad. That's kind of the way I feel about it. I mean, I want everybody to, because once they sign it, that's the way I figure it. Yes. I mean, even with me, like say, for example, if I bought a house last year I got stupid and bought it for $250,000 and now I'm trying to sell it and it's only worth, you know, $235,000. I'm not winning. I'm losing. But, you know, I'm going to still sign that thing and it's not necessarily a win-win thing. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents in there. And if anybody disagrees with me, that's okay. And you can even say so right here if you want to, but I'm
all
not
about
real
the
big.
win-win. You guys know that. So,
Okay. And
but
you know,
remember, win-win doesn't mean there aren't sacrifices. Everybody does. It's that everybody's listened to, and everybody's appreciated. Everybody gets to feel important. But it's being somebody everybody wants to work with, being that agent, and then getting what's best for everyone usually works out for everyone. You have a smoother contract. That's my opinion.
no, and I'm with you on that, Maggie. And I also, you know, I mean, you've got a good heart, and I hope all of us do. But I think one of the things that, you know, I mean, we can win, but you don't step on their neck. You know, you don't treat people poorly. But the fact of the matter is, I take agency very, very seriously. And I'm not saying that you don't, but I'm just saying I'm worried about my client. I hope to the good Lord above that the agent on the other side is worried about their client. And if they want to worry about my client too, great, that's fantastic. But
yeah, and that comes to your fiduciary duty. And your fiduciary duty literally means putting your client's needs ahead of your own. So
exactly.
so we are in agreement. It's just semantics.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't mean to sound like a mean guy, like, you know, I don't really care what happens to them. You know, I mean, if somebody says, geez, they bought it for $250,000 2 years ago, and now they can only sell it for $235,000, I will, you know, in my own mind think, oh gosh, that's kind of too bad. But I still got to be, I'm not going to go back to my client and say, could you pay it like $265? Because they paid $250 for it.
Oh yeah, that's
really
not
don't
winning.
want.
That's just being stupid.
There you go. So don't go for the win-win and fall into being stupid. Exactly. Closing techniques, always be closing, cool coffee cup. I prefer mine, best papa ever, but always be closing, assumptive close. Shall I come over with a purchase agreement now, or would tonight at 7 be better? You know, most of us, I guess right now, are probably doing electronic, right? I mean, we're doing electronic signatures. And just as an aside, I'll have to tell you, I mean, I love it because it's easy. I hate it because I don't think contracts are being explained thoroughly to people. Now, the solution to that is if you can't sit down face-to-face with somebody, at least go over it in a Zoom meeting or something like that where you can explain all the paragraphs. But the assumptive close, that's something that we've been doing all of our lives in real estate, right? All of us who are long in the tooth. You know, you don't say, you know, when do you want to get together to sign this or whatever? You give them a choice, and the choice are both going to achieve the goal of getting them to sign the contract.
Another way to get the contract so that they understand it is during the buyer interview at the end, after you've gotten everything signed, is to give them a purchase offer contract and go over one so that during a seller's market when things are fast, you have already reviewed a basic contract. And you'll
Right.
explain to them that what will change will be the price, number of days, maybe, depending on the situation. But the contract will remain the same, and you can leave them a hard copy of a contract to review. That's a
Sure.
great way to know that the contract has been explained.
Right. And that's again, I'm a firm believer in that buyer consultation. Now, maybe you end up getting somebody referred over to you that, they found out about a house and want to go out and look at it right away. Okay, go ahead. If it's somebody that you know and you feel comfortable with, show them the house, but then say to them, hey, let's go back to the office and sit down and talk about how this whole process works. And then showing them all those forms so that they aren't going to be surprised. But the other thing too is, and I think I may have a panel on here someplace that alludes to this, and so I'll repeat myself like I'm prone to doing. All my children said, Dad, you've already told us that story like 10 times. But this whole thing about educating your buyer, tell them what the market's doing. So here's what happens, especially with older people, we're going to sell your house. We're going to put it on the market, but I'm going to give you fair warning. We put this into the MLS. Guess what's going to happen tonight? We're going to get 5 requests for showings tomorrow. And then after tomorrow, we're going to get 4 offers. And then people are going to want you to move out, and, people who aren't in tune with what's going on, they're like, what? So if you haven't given them that warning, so everything's going along fine. You're happy. Oh, look at this. I've got 5, 6, 7 showings. Look at this. I've got 4 or 5 offers. And they're like going, absolutely no way. We didn't realize this was going to happen. You've got to be able to educate them to what the market's doing. Same thing with your buyers. You do the buyer consultation. So you say to them, okay, we're going to go out and look at houses. First thing I'm going to tell you is how long that house has been on the market. And if it just got listed yesterday, or if it just got listed a couple of days ago, guess what? We're going to have to move very quickly, maybe quicker than you think you want to move. So if you like this house and you really, really like it, I may be pressuring you to a degree in a gentle way that you're going to have to put a purchase offer in on this tonight. You're going to have to do this tonight. Well, geez, I don't know if we're really ready for that. Okay. All right, if you're not ready for that, that is okay. But I just have to warn you that if you call me tomorrow morning and say that you're ready, I'm going to call the listing agent and they're going to say, we took an offer last night. So what are you guys going to do? And this is what bugs the listing agent so much, and it's going to bug you as a listing agent, and you're going to hear back from them. You're going to say to the, are you through attorney's approval? And they're going to go, no, I'm not going to do that. We're not going to get into that kind of stuff. So, well, if you're not through, here's the thing. If I write up a purchase offer on the day of the closing, a legitimate purchase offer on that house, and I hand it to Maggie, what does Maggie have to do with it? She's got to tell them about it. You have to present, we're obligated by law to present a legitimate offer. Unless we get in writing from our sellers, I don't want to hear any more offers. And sometimes we're getting that now where we've had like multiple offers. And Paul, did you want to throw in here? I see that you unmuted yourself. Paul?
Yeah, I sat in on a presentation for salespeople, for people selling their home. And they were saying that the salesperson was telling the client that a lot of times they list the house on a Thursday to get longer time to
on business days. Mm-hmm. Yeah, people do that.
So you can use a delayed showing in negotiation, Paul. So a lot of times people will list it on a Thursday and have a delayed showing or till Friday, or even have the showing come up normally, but have delayed negotiation till Monday at 6 or 7 p.m., giving them through the weekend and giving them the opportunity to have an open house. That's legitimate as long as it's in writing and posted in the MLS and
right.
in our area, private and public.
Also And the 3-day waiting period doesn't include weekends.
Correct.
If it was approved
Yeah, so that,
3 business days.
that's correct. In our area, that's correct. The 3-day doesn't include Saturday or Sunday. And so they are actually gaining some extra days to get to get more offers while they're waiting for attorney approval. But attorney approval, it says it, they have 3 days. Some attorneys will get it on Monday morning. I had an attorney sign one within 30 minutes of receipt. So they can sign it quicker unless you're you're talking to the attorney ahead of time.
In our area, it's a blank space for when the attorney approval is going to be required to be completed. So they go by the recommendation of giving at least 3 days. However, they are receptive to, if all parties agree to 2 days or 1 day, that's fine. Everybody agrees to it. They sign the agreement and they say it. But the one thing, and we'll get it.
Minimum of 3 calendar, three business days.
And here it's basically a recommendation, and they're saying that if everybody agrees to have it done in 2 days or 1 day or whatever. But the whole thing is, and we'll talk about this when we get into filling out the actual contract. I want hard dates in there. I don't want the word 3 days. I don't want the word 4 days, 2 weeks, whatever, because nobody knows when it started. And, oh, does Flag Day count? I mean, was that a holiday? I don't know. You know, a hard date is very hard to argue. So I really, that's one of my hangups. I really push for hard dates. Closing techniques.
So by a hard date, what he means is a calendar date.
Right. Yeah,
You know.
definitely. Do yourself a favor, especially for attorney's approval. Make sure that doesn't fall on a Saturday or a Sunday, because they, in all likelihood, won't be around for that. So. Again, securing the offer, I think that repeats what we've just been discussing. You educate them ahead of time about how we're going to place the offer and what might happen, and you reduce the fear of the unknown. You do have to create a sense of urgency. You know, you have to say to them, hey, look, I mean, if you walk into a house, I have no problem with this at all. You walk into the house with these people and you go, wow, this is good. This is a good house for the price. In fact, you might even be thinking to yourself, holy smokes, why did they price it at this? This is, you know, going to go. You got to tell them, you know, you have to tell them what your opinion is. And you have to create a sense of urgency. And basically, you're going to say to them, if you don't buy this today, somebody else is going to buy this today, you know, but you've gotten to know them well enough and you've gained their trust. Remember what we said in the beginning, you know, they don't care what you know until they know you care. They know you really care about them. They know you're protecting them. And they might even say, hey, you know what? I get it. This is a great price, but we aren't ready to do it. You say, okay, that's cool. I just want to tell you. Of course, then you tell them something like that. And then, of course, you look at it like 5 days later and the house is still on the market. And you're like, no, maybe I liked it more than I should have liked it. Don't let your personal opinion of a home or its features prejudice you. As you get older, like I'm an old guy. I go into these houses, sometimes with first-time buyers, and I look at and I'm like, if I had a worst enemy, I would not convict him to have to live in this house. And the people are like going, wow, this is great. We love this house. And you're thinking, geez, okay. You know, so you have to be careful that, you know, I mean, for example, like when my wife and I were looking at houses 150 years ago, I liked raised ranches. I thought, wow, these are pretty cool. And my wife was like, absolutely not. And she was right. I wouldn't buy a raised ranch right now. Hey, if anybody lives in a raised ranch, it's nothing against it. I don't like that style. But I have sold a lot of them. And when I walk in with people and they're like, wow, I really like this house, I'm thinking to myself, it's a raised ranch. How could you possibly like this? But instead, I keep that to myself. So I don't let my personal opinion of the home or the features prejudice me. And then again, listen. I think that's great advice, of course. The other thing, too, is watch. You know, you watch their body language. You get a feel for what they're liking or not. I don't know if anybody ever heard about this, but real estate agents, of course, we shouldn't be doing this with COVID, but real estate agents love it if somebody sits down at a house that they're looking and they sit down at the kitchen table. They're sitting there looking around and going, they're like nesting here. You know, they're like imagining themselves sitting there having a cup of coffee in the morning and this is their house. So you always watch for stuff like that. You watch for their pupils to become dilated or their eyes get big and they're showing buying signs. Securing the offer. Yeah, somebody put on here, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. I don't know. I wasn't real hot on that, but I left it in there because, you know, it's kind of a funny thing. Depends on the property, specific property. You know the current market. You can perceive that your buyer wants to move. You can move on it. You can still talk about the pros and cons. You know, like I said, I can see why you like this home. It's a great deal. No doubt other people will feel probably the same. So you might want to think about doing something on this one. You know, that's kind of the way I would like to suggest that you know, think about, you know, giving them a gentle push. There are a lot of people in this business. My wife used to kind of complain to me about this because she would see other real estate agents who were aggressive and really pushy. Just not my style. But if you want to do it that way and if it works for you, okay, that's fine. Because those people do sell a lot of real estate. I just can't do that. And you know what? To me, it's like the golden rule, really. I want to treat people the way I would like them to treat me. So I never want anybody pushing me into some kind of a decision. So I'm very rarely going to push anybody else to make a decision. But by the same token, if you're not a bit aggressive, you may have been doing them a disservice by not saying to them, hey, this house is going to be sold today. So if you want to be the people that are going to be living in it in a couple of months, you probably better get on it. And if you don't tell them that, you might be doing them a disservice. So it's kind of like you got to kind of weigh it a little bit. And then, of course, you got to fall into your own style. You know, and I have often said, you know, my father was a dairy farmer out in Penn Yan, New York. And very, very smart guy. He went to Cornell, probably one of the smartest guys I've ever known. But he would not be a very good real estate agent. And that doesn't make him a bad person, obviously. But I say to you, you know, you've got to have certain types of qualities to be able to do this business. And if you don't have the ability to be a little bit overbearing, you may not make it. So you may have to tap the brakes a little bit while you're starting, and you can't be too overbearing, obviously, or you'll alienate people. So you got to find a real easy mix in this business. And if you've got that going on, you'll probably be in it for as long as I've been in it because it's so much fun. You're going to love it. Reinforce the buyer's feelings about the home, mirror their excitement. I guess mirror their excitement if you can. You know, or be happy for them that they found what they think they want. You know, I have said to people, you know, especially young couples, they buy a 2-bedroom house and they insist on it. And then I might say to them, I said, you're going to be calling me in a couple of years, you know, once you start outgrowing this bad boy. And I'm going to be listing this house and it's going to be a 2-bedroom house and 2-bedroom houses are harder to sell than 3 bedrooms. Thank you very much. But I'll see you in a couple of years. And I used to like to, you see where it says here, give the buyers quiet time to make their decision. I do like that. I like them to be able to talk it over and to get on the same page. But again, with the market the way it is, you got to tell them, get on the same page quick, you know. So.
Yeah, there's a great trick that comes from Ninja for getting buyers on the same page. You got a husband and wife and they seem to be on separate pages, give them each a piece of paper. Have them go away separately and write down their number 1 through 4 top things they must have. Then have them bring those to you and see where they match and work on those matches because sometimes they don't know they have these disparities. So you need to get them on the same page. That's a great, very neutral way to get them on the same page. So just 2 slips of paper, number 1 through 4, the 4 things you must have, and then put them together. But don't let them do it.
That's the book that Maggie's alluding to, right? Ninja Selling. And if you don't have it, get it. And in our office, what we had done every few months is we do a little book club, and we read a couple chapters, and then we all get together and talk about it. And thank you, Maggie, for bringing that up. I think that's a great resource. Let's see here. What are we doing next? Oh, yeah. Oral contracts. They don't exist really in real estate. It's got to be in writing. So here's what we see this all the time, and I think Maggie and Jen certainly will agree with me. We call the other agent, and the other agent says, "Well, what are you thinking about offering?" You know, because we say, "Well, we're gonna write up a purchase offer." Well, what are you thinking? And say, "Well, you know, they're asking 300, and we're going to offer like, 225." You know, what I say to them is write it up. Just write it up and give it to me. I'll do my best to present it to my other side, and we'll see if we can find some common ground. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't think 225 is going to do it. I know my clients pretty well, but you know what? At least it's a starting point, because we can't negotiate if we don't start. But if you want me to call my person and say they're going to offer 225, I'm not going to do it. However, I do have to, and this is where you have to put your big boy pants on, realize that you might have to go and call up your client and say, "I've got a purchase offer." And they'll go, "Wow, that's great." And you say, "Yeah, that's the good news." Now, the bad news is this, because they might yell at you. "Are you kidding? Steve, you're bringing me an offer for $225,000. Do you even know how much we're asking?" I'm like, yeah, of course I do, but I'm obligated. It's the law. I just got to give it to you. But let's talk this through. I'm not going to offer them anything. Listen, don't ever bring me an offer like that again. You get that sometimes, and you're going to just have to stand there and, like I said, put your big boy pants on and take the brunt of it.
A way to help your clients before you ever get there is when you're doing your listing appointment, say, first of all, I have to bring you any offer that comes in. So if we get an offer for a pig and a goat, we're going to accept that offer with a counter. We might counter right back at the list price, but it never dies in our lap. We're going to counter them until either they leave or they come up. So don't get emotional about what they offer. They offer us a pig and a goat. We say, "Great, we accept your offer, except price to be $350,000.
Right. That's one of the things. Hey, I got great news. Guess what? We've accepted your offer. There's just one little change, though. It's going to be a different price, if you get what I mean. So yeah, that's the way that goes. Don't do the oral thing. Don't do that. Don't fall into that trap. You know what? But I'm going to say this. Maggie's probably her hair will curl.
Yeah,
But,
I'm like that.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to happen to you, and it might be somebody you know. Like if Jen had a house listed, I might call her up and say, "Jen, I know you're listed at 400. My folks are thinking about coming in at 300. Can I tell them that I talked to you about it and you said absolutely not," or whatever? I mean, that just does happen. The more you're in the business, you get to know other people. And I'm not condoning it, but I'm just saying, I'm being realistic. It might happen. And again, one of the worst things that can happen, and especially after you get more experience, is don't condescend to the other side, the other agent, and say, "How long have you been in the business? Do you know the law? Do you know what the law is," or whatever? You do stuff like that and you're getting nowhere. You just go, "Okay, all right." Say you're the listing agent and you said that to me. "Hey, we're going over 300. Say, if it was Maggie, I go, "Okay, Maggie, okay, we all know what the rules are. I know that. But we just can't go down that road. I will, as a favor to you, call my call my client and tell them that somebody's out there thinking about coming in pretty low, but until it's in writing, we're not going to respond, and just kind of try to be nice, play nice in the sandbox. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Because it really, I get new agents come in and they'll tell me that, somebody like me has said to them, how long have you been in the business? Now, sometimes I want to ask that question, and the reason I want to ask it, and I don't ask it with that tone, so how long have you been doing this? Because I want to kind of get a feel for, is there a possibility that they've never seen this before? Because if that's the way, then I'm okay with it. I want to work with them a little bit. But, I'm not doing it just to put them down.
Yeah, in our area, you can tell how new an agent is by their number.
I know.
So,
I know.
And my very first deal, the realtor on the other side called me up and said, I know you're new, so let me explain to you how this is done.
Oh, baby. Yeah, that's hard to take.
So
that's hard to take.
And I said, oh, yes, please do.
Yeah, and
Please educate me. But I had done what I asked you to do. I had read my purchase contract over and over and over and over and over again, so I knew what it said. So when he tried to school me, I said, well, if you had read your contract on line 8, it says this. It's already been agreed to and approved by your attorney, so move on. He said, what? I said, get your contract out.
Yeah.
So
read it.
And I was polite, but I was firm. I was like, that's nice. That's already agreed to. Move on. What do you got next?
Yeah. Right.
But your contract is one of the best tools in your toolbox if you know what it says and where it says it. I didn't even have to look at the contract. I knew what line 8 said.
Yeah.
I had read it so many times. And that's why I ask you to do that. It is a great tool.
So that leads also to why are verbal negotiations dangerous? Just because it can get everybody angry. And why did I ask that question twice? Probably because I repeat myself. That's what I do. They are not enforceable. They do allow for miscommunication. I mean, you could say to the guy, we're going to offer 300, and then he calls them up and says, they're coming in low, 325, 350 or something, they could miscommunicate. So a lot of bad things can happen with that, so stay away from that. And also, as Maggie said, they deny us that all-important paper trail. The contract is, it's everything. That's what we go to right through to the closing, and then sometimes after the closing, if there's any type of arbitration or any type of discussion. Face-to-face offer presentation. So this was in the PowerPoint that they sent to me. A couple of years ago, tried to reinstitute this face-to-face negotiation thing. If I sit down, when we started in this business, I would call up Maggie and say, hey, Maggie, I've got a purchase offer. I showed the house yesterday. We didn't have like computers and stuff like that. And I would say, I showed the house and my people really like it. And I would like to come over. I would like to present the offer. Can we present it at my office tonight at 7 o'clock? And Maggie would go, no, not at your office. I can do it at their house or I can do it at my office. So what was the technique here? The one thing was, if I could get her and her client to come to my office, they're guests. I'm in charge. I'm in control. Gives me a little bit of power. So she was smart enough to know she's not going to do that. So she says either at their house or my office. Maggie prefers her office because there she's in control. And if we go to their house, there's an emotion thing. They're sitting there looking around. They've had Christmases here and they've had Thanksgivings here and birthday parties here. They raised their kids here. They laughed here. They cried here. That's where their heart is. And it's harder for them to sign that paper. But if they jump into Maggie's office where they feel comfortable with her, Maggie can control a lot better. So I used to really like that. I liked person-to-person negotiations. I could read their body language. I could tell if they're understanding the purchase offer, if they've got real objections, if they're on the same page. I could tell if the husband and wife were like, firing on the same page. It just worked a lot better. Then all of a sudden we got into this thing when we got into computers, and they fax it over or they email it over or whatever. And I'm emailing it to somebody, no offense intended to anybody who's new, but doesn't know what they're doing. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to negotiate. They don't know their clients that well. I don't know what they're saying to their clients. I don't know if they even understand if there's some idiosyncrasy in my contract that I needed to explain to them if they really got it. It's just bad. So I feel like a lot of contracts started to not get accepted because we weren't able to sit there and hammer it out. So Howard Hanna, in their infinite wisdom, and they do have a lot of wisdom. I'm really very impressed with this company. And by the way, I'm only with Howard Hanna for how many years, Jen?
4.
3?
It's actually been a little longer than that. I think it's been 4. We did the name change a year after the acquisition.
We were Realty USA. Oh, you too, Maggie, right? Yeah.
We were Nothnagel. Yeah.
Oh, Nothnagel. Okay. So, but I'll tell you, I'm impressed with everything that they've got. But getting back to this, they've been talking about, person-to-person presentation. So what we're going to say to you, as far as what the company would like to see you doing, is present your offer in person, if you can. Now, if you're a listing agent, and say I'm a listing agent, and Jen has got a purchase offer and Maggie's got a purchase offer, and Maggie says that she wants to present the offer in person, and I say that she can't. They're not going to do that. Jen says they want to present the offer in person, and I finally go, okay, Jen, go ahead, present it in person. And I let her present in person. What do you think Maggie's going to do if she finds out that Jen was able to present the offer in person? She's probably going to call the standards and procedures and probably have me hauled in for a little arbitration. So don't do that. If you let one person in, you better let everybody in. So.
And very few agents are asking for the opportunity to present an offer. So when you do it, it separates you. So when I call up a listing agent, I already have my little speech ready. I say, hey, Steve, this is Maggie Knapp from Howard Hanna. I'd love to bring you an offer from my clients. If possible, I'd like to present in person, and you don't know me. So let me tell you what I want to present, why they want to buy the house. I'm going to be very careful of any fair housing. I'm not going to mention anything that would cross over any lines, but I'd like to present in person. Would that work for you? Is that okay? If he says no, I'm going to say, do you have that in writing from your clients that they're not accepting in-person offers?
I do.
Great. Can I have a copy of that?
Sure. But it does offend me that you're questioning my integrity and thinking that I'm not telling you the truth. But I get it. No, and
I
you
would
should.
never. I'm only going there if you're going to tell me no really quickly.
Yeah. No, I know that's true.
I'm offended.
Yeah. Right. But our listing agreements here actually offer that option as to whether offers are going to be presented in person or not. And yeah. And I'm with you, Maggie. I want to present the offer in person. And for the same reason that I don't want Maggie to meet my people, is I don't want her to be too persuasive, especially if we're, because she's good. She knows how to communicate. She knows how to read. She knows how to verify and overcome objections. And I don't want her to persuade my people. Now, I think Maggie and I are cut from the same cloth, and we could probably do a pretty good job together. But some of and again, I don't want to offend anybody, but there are weaker agents out there that don't have that ability, that are going to be sliced to shreds by people who have that ability. And, they're going to walk away, and the clients are going to be, geez, what did we just do? So Jen, yeah.
Can I ask, reality though, even before COVID, how many offers were actually presented in person, percentage wise? It's a pretty small number.
Oh, very small.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably less than 2%. But
So I
maybe
mean,
less than one.
it's a great idea in theory, but at least in our local neck of the woods, it's really not standard practice. So just to clue everybody.
I've done it in the last few years several times, but I am the only one that's done it because I'm the only one that's asked.
I remember the last time I did one in person, and I would love to do them in person. They're kind of fun. You know, they're kind of fun. Although I do remember one time I was doing one down in Cohoes. This was awful. I got to tell you a little war story. So I'm going down to Cohoes, New York, and it was like, I'm thinking it was a townhouse or whatever. But anyway, so I called the agent. I can't remember. I'll say her name was Heather. Hey, Heather, it's Steve Staples. I said, can we present the offer Sunday morning? She goes, yeah, sure. So I get down there and I knock on the door. This guy comes to the door, and he's got like a wife beater on, big, heavy, fat guy, you know. And he goes, he opens the door and he goes, whatever his wife's name is or whatever. He goes, the realtor's here, and he just walks away. And I'm standing. It was wintertime. I'm standing there at the door, and I'm like, okay. And so the wife comes out, and she's got like a house coat on, you know, like in her jammies. This is in the morning. So she welcomes me into the house. I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and the other agent's not there yet. So this is kind of awkward. You know, you're just kind of sitting there waiting for the listing agent to show up. So she shows up, and she comes in and sits down, and I go to present my offer, and I think it was like $125,000 asking price, and I think my people were coming in like at something like 95,000, or it was below asking price. So the guy's sitting there right across from me, across from the table. His wife is sitting next to him, and the other agent is sitting over there. So I'm on this side of the table. I'm sitting there with my legs crossed like this, and I put the offer down. And I got these shoes on. They're like, you know, those slip-on shoes with the tassel things. You know, they're like kind of loafer type thing. They're dress shoes, but I'm wearing a suit and everything. So I put the offer up there, and that's what they want to hear right away. They want to hear about the money. You know, you can do all the stuff. I told them a little bit about, oh, my buyers are this, and, you know, they love your house, and blah, 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 and this is where they want to live. Yeah. And then I put the offer down there, and he saw the thing, and he slams his hand down on the table, and he jumps up like this, you know, and I'm like, he's a big guy. I back up. When he jumped up, he hit my foot. My shoe came off and slid across the kitchen floor, and it goes like right to the refrigerator. The wife starts screaming, whatever his name is, relax. And the other agent's like, everybody calm down. I don't know what to do. So I get up to go get my shoe, and it's under the refrigerator. You know, under the refrigerator, how they have that like little vent thing? It's stuck, and I can't get my shoe out. And I'm pulling on it. Now the little vent thing comes off. I get my shoe on. I got to put the vent thing back on. Oh, my God. So present offers in person. How fun it would be, they said. Oh, my Lord. But anyway, yeah, that's, we used to do that, and, you know, I think it worked better, and I think really if we went back to it now, I think more offers would get accepted. We'd get them accepted. So then when you do the multiple offer things, that's another great thing. You do multiple offers in person. I remember going out in Niskayuna, there were like 5 other agents sitting in the living room. It looked like a Monty Python skit about the milkman where everybody's just being held hostage or whatever. They're all sitting there. And then everybody goes out into the kitchen, and there were like these double doors. You go into the kitchen, present your offer, then you have to go back and sit with everybody and wait until they come up with a decision. That was pretty weird. But
And
anyway.
if you can't present in person now, if somebody's not going to let you do that, at least have good conversation with that other realtor so that they feel like you're going to be a good person to work with. And then if you get that contract, make sure you are a good person to work with, because a lot of contracts are influenced by that relationship. Because Steve might say, I've worked with Jen a number of times. Out of, you know, I got 28 contracts here. She's the one I want to work with because I know we're going to get to close and she's going to do everything the way she's supposed to.
It can make a difference.
And it can make a big difference.
Yeah. Like, I mean, if we're in a multiple offer situation and, you know, like I said, like Maggie said, you know, there are a couple agents that I don't really know and they're pretty darn close. I say, you know what, Jen's got it all together. She's going to get us to a closing. I would recommend that if we're having a decision on this, you know, the terms, the money, whatever, I think we got a better chance of getting there with Jen. I talked to this other guy and he sounded like, you know, he really, you know, didn't know what he was doing. I don't have a lot of confidence. And of course, I think we talked about this earlier, but if we go in with a purchase offer, it's going to be we're going to have a pre-qualification letter, right? Everybody shake your heads up and down. Yes. Yeah, right. Good. I mean, probably have a pre-qualification letter before you even go to show house, but I can see you showing an hour or two and then say, okay, look, let's get serious about this and get our mortgage originator. Multiple offers is the next panel that I'm showing here. Multiple offers, that's kind of a weird thing because, you know, people from the outside, if you're talking about real estate with all your friends and they're going, oh yeah, you must love that. Yeah, you're getting multiple offers on all these houses. No, really, I don't quite love it. And here's why, because 5 people that I know, and I know a lot of real estate people in this area because I've been in the business as long as I've been, and they're like friends of mine. And I got to call them up and go, guess what? Yours didn't make it, you know, or whatever. There's going to be 5 offers and one of them gets it. So 4 telephone calls you got to make to people and say, they took another offer. And then depending on their tenor, you know, they're going to be like, well, wait a minute. What did the other one go for? Or was it your offer? Or did it come out of your office? Or, you know, there's a lot that it just gets complicated and it gets crazy. Now, the question is going to be, if you make a purchase offer to Maggie on a house that she's got listed, and she calls you back and goes, she says, we accepted another offer. So the first thing you're going to do is go, Maggie, were we in a multiple offer situation? Maggie goes, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, you were. There were 2 offers. How come you didn't tell me? You have to tell me that. No, Maggie doesn't have to tell you that. Now, in our business, if you want to, again, this is playing nice in the sandbox, you should tell the other people. You should tell everybody. We got a multiple offer thing. Now, you don't say, like say, for example, it was Jen and me and Maggie, and she tells me that it was multiple offer, but she doesn't tell Jen. That's a bad thing. You got to tell everybody. So most of the MLSs and most of the MLSs have a guideline on how to present multiple offers. And I always look at that and I think, well, it's a guideline. So Maggie finds out that Jen and I have a purchase offer and she knows another one's coming in from somebody in her office. So Maggie says, I got a multiple offer situation. I'm going to send the form out to everybody. And that form, more than likely in all of your areas, will say to it, this is when you have to have your highest and best offer in. And that's the deadline. So the reason I smile about that is because if I present an offer tomorrow that is a legitimate offer, Maggie still has to present it. You know, now Maggie might say, no, we had a multiple offer situation. The deadline was last night, Steve, you knew that. And then we'd have to joust a little bit. And she would, well, how would you respond, Maggie?
How would I respond?
Steve, you're an idiot.
I would, you know, the thing is, in New York State, we have to present all offers, right?
Right.
So I can present your offer, but my client doesn't have to accept anything. So if there's a deadline and my client said, you know, they didn't get their offer in when everybody else did, who makes the decision? It's not me. It's never me. It's always my client. But I am going to say to my client, if they brought in an offer after everyone else and they were informed at the same time as everyone else, I'm concerned that the rest of the contract may be run that way.
Good point. Good point. Even if I say to you, it's $25,000 more than you guys are asking, and
so I'm going to make sure. Do you have a pre-qualification, or do you have pre-approval, or do you have pre-approval of funds?
No, I got pre-approval.
So if you've got you know, I have to present the offer either way.
Yeah, but I have pre-approval.
I got to present the offer either way. That's the law. So I'm going to take it to my client and say, you know, it's up to you.
So this is where,
I'm gonna ask him, why didn't you get back to me when, by that deadline? You know, and maybe he's got a good reason. My
What, there was
daughter-in-law
I
was
Love
having a
Lucy.
baby. Huh?
I was watching the I Love Lucy reruns. I Love Lucy, and I couldn't get to writing the offer. Does that make me a bad person?
Well,
Yeah.
it makes you not interested in your client's best interest.
There you
You're
go.
supposed to put your fiduciary duty is putting your client's interest in front of your own, and Lucy does not come in front of your client's best interest.
No, that's true. She doesn't. But this is where we run into like these headbutting situations with people that we're going to do business with down the road, you know? So Steve had a perfect right, Steve had a legal right to be late with his purchase offer. Now Maggie starts bumping head with Steve, and now the next time we get together, we got to hopefully put that on a shelf, and hopefully Steve learned his lesson, and hopefully Maggie can, you know, just say, okay, although she will, you know, she can forgive and not forget. You know, she can say, all right, the next time they're putting one together. I kind of had a rough ride with Staples that last time, but hopefully he's got his act together on this one. So multiple offers, very, very difficult and very, very stressful. But at some point, as Maggie said, your seller is the one who's going to decide. And they may, in writing, give you something says, I don't want to hear any more offers. And if you've got that, and then Steve Staples calls you like 3 days later or 4 days later or a week later and says, hey, I got a purchase offer for you. We're not accepting any offers. Maggie, you know as well as I do that you have to present this offer. Steve, guess what? I've got a form that they signed that said they don't want to hear any more offers. If you want me to send it to you, I'll send it to you. Oh, okay, never mind.
But you always, remember, you always want to be the agent that everyone wants to deal with, whatever company they're from. And I can tell you, by being that agent during the process, I've had the other side clients after closing call me up and say, going forward, I want you to be my realtor, not the person I used.
Yeah.
Because you were way more professional and did more for me at the end of the day than the person I paid. I've had them try to call me in between and say, you know, I can't, that's a violation. It's an ethical thing. What help do you need? Let me call your attorney to get you that answer, because I can't get in there.
And let me just jump in.
You gotta be careful, yeah.
You know, as just another voice of reason. You all on this call, for the most part, are new or newer. Don't go this alone. Reach out to your manager, lickety split, because it can get dicey quickly. So that's what your manager's there for. And, you know, sit down with your manager and say, hey, can you just run through how we do this in our local marketplace?
That's a good point, Jen. And lately, that's the majority of the telephone calls I'm fielding. We're in a multiple offer situation. They not necessarily what do I do, but, and sometimes it's what do I do, but a lot of times it's like, here's what I'm thinking about doing, or here's what's being done to me. What do you think about this? You know, so, and every once in a while as a manager, you know, I might, on behalf of an agent, call the other agent and say, you know, have you got a reason for doing this? Because sometimes, you know, they're working, they're doing their very best. It just might be that they were trained differently, or their manager has a different approach, or whatever. Having acquired a new office, Howard Hanna bought a Better Homes and Gardens franchise, and I've got 20-some new agents that have been managed by somebody for about 18 years differently than I manage. And so I've noticed a lot of things that they may do or that I may not necessarily do. So, you know, and I think you can see here what I wrote at the bottom of this page. Think golden rule, really. Just treat everybody like you want to be treated. And you know what? If you get treated poorly, suck it up. Just, you know, it's okay. There are idiots out there, and you know, not really very many of them, but we're going to run into them every once in a while. And, you know, maybe you can go home and, I don't know, kick the dog or have a second gin and tonic or something like that. But, you know, you got to kind of just get over it because they're out there and, you know, you take the high road. So, all right, let's see. Multiple offers.
I have a quick question.
Yes. Go ahead. Go, Ashley?
Just about pre-qualified versus pre-approval. Yes.
Okay, we've got bad reception. Is there any way you
Buyer
could?
that was pre-qualified, but I noticed in a lot of the private remarks in the MLS.
So I think she's asking about the difference between pre-approval and pre-qualification. So pre-qualification, Ashley, is a loan officer says that you can get a mortgage for X amount of dollars based on what you told them. Pre-approval is they can get a mortgage based on what they have vetted. They have checked out your pay stubs and your credit report and some other sources, but there's still always going to be some other. It's still not a mortgage commitment. But pre-approval is they've looked into some of your history.
Well, so when you've got pre-approval, there's basically two things that are needed after that. You're going to have a contract, and you're going to have a satisfactory appraisal. And as Maggie said, with the pre-qualification, you know, they haven't verified funds and assets and jobs and all that kind of stuff yet. So that's why it makes it a little bit stronger to have a pre-approval. Multiple offers may occur when, I don't know, I think we've kind of beaten this maybe to death.
Might be dead.
So let's get through that. And you know what I did want to talk about, though? Yeah, they did these case studies. Is everybody going to get a copy of this or have access to it?
Yeah, if you send it to Jen and I, we'll send it to all of them.
Okay. What I wanted to get to, first off, I don't think we have to go till noon talking about contracts, but there are a couple other things that I do want to get onto about the actual contract. So what I wanted to talk to you about in this multiple offer situation thing is, are you guys, and shake your heads up or side to side on this question, using escalation clauses? Almost everybody is. Some people aren't shaking their head one way or the other.
Yeah,
They
can you
don't know yet.
explain what they
Okay.
are right quick, Steve, please?
Okay, all right, good. I look at it as a necessary evil. And I would love to, okay, good, I'm glad to see Maggie agrees with me on that. I don't like them, but you almost have to use them. So, you know, if Jennifer is presenting an offer and she's got an escalation clause in a multiple offer situation, and Maggie knows that we're in a multiple offer situation and doesn't offer to use the escalation clause and ends up losing, and her people are out at a Labor Day barbecue talking to everybody, and the guy goes, well, did she do that escalation clause thing? And they go, what? Did she use the escalation clause thing? Because we use it, we got our offer accepted because we used an escalation clause. Hello, Maggie. What does the word escalation clause mean to you? And Maggie's like, well, I don't believe in it. I don't like it. I didn't use it. You're going to be in a bad position. So you better educate them as to what the clause is, and I think you better get used to using it. And like I said, I don't like it. Here's when I first saw it. What'd you say, Maggie?
So I don't like them, but I use them.
Yeah, I would get them if I was a listing agent. So I would get all of these purchase offers and they would say escalation clause on it. And the escalation clause, I think if you're using them, they have a ceiling, right? So in other words, I'll go up $1,000 over the best offer, but not exceed $350,000. So guess what I see when I'm looking at that? I'm the listing agent. 350,000. I guess I'll counter offer to everybody at 350,000. And I would assume that the people who said they would go to 350,000 would go to 350,000. Now, it does say that I have to prove that I had an offer at 345 to enact the escalation clause. And the agent who talked to me about this and got me thinking about it said, I'm not even addressing that. I just know that they tipped their hand as to how high they would go. So that's why I just kind of didn't like it. I just kind of feel like it's got a couple of little portals where things are leaking and it doesn't work the way we want to make it work.
And what Steve is referring to is when you're writing an offer for your buyer, is we are supposed to bring the highest and best offer. So if you're bringing the highest and best, how can you have a higher offer they're willing to go to? So that's the dilemma. So when I go to my buyers, because we're in a seller's market, I say, this is how I use an escalation clause. We bring our highest and best. An escalation clause is that place that you don't want to go, but you're willing to give something else up to get there. Like maybe you go to Starbucks every morning and you buy a latte and you're willing to give that up because that's $5 a morning, that's $25 a week, it's $100 a month. $100 a month in terms of a mortgage is a lot of money. So what are you willing to go up to? What are you willing to give up to get that escalation? So that's how I describe it to my buyers.
That's good. I like it.
And so that when they're writing one, they know it's a pain point. It's not where they're comfortable. It's a pain point, but they're not willing to lose the house over it. You may find a different way to do it. That's worked for me, and it's understandable to my clients. Escalation clauses, I have won offers and saved my clients money. And I have, because they might have offered more, but they didn't have to go to that break point. And we've won and they've had to go to that pain point. So, they have to be prepared to do both if you're using it. So.
And then again, this panel goes back to that multiple offer situation. Why can't I look at both offers without telling the buyers or the agents about the competition? And again, legally they can. They don't have to tell anybody anything really, and they can accept whatever offer they want for basically whatever reason they want. If they start telling us that they're accepting an offer, if they actually tell us that they're accepting an offer because these people are not of maybe a protected group or whatever, then we got a fair housing issue, and then we've got the flags. Not more than a red flag, a bunch of red flags better go up, and you better step aside, call your manager, and get ready to lose a client. So, and it's okay to lose a client in that particular case, as far as I'm concerned.
A lot of times a seller will accept an offer because someone's giving them longer days to close, or because maybe it was a veteran's loan and they're a long line of veterans in their family and that was the only vet loan they had and they wanted to give a vet a chance. Some of them, so there's lots and lots of reasons, and it's not always the money.
When I sold my house in Albany, I sold it to this young couple for less money than another offer that I had because I coached her in CYO basketball. And I said, you know what? I want Sophie to have this house. She and her husband, it's her first house. They're getting started out. I'm delighted to think that it's going to be them. So I sold it to them, and I never had to explain myself to the other purchase offer. It wasn't over asking price, but I just said we accepted the other offer, and that's my prerogative, and that's what a seller can do. But seriously, do be aware if they start to give you some type of a feeling like they're discriminating against some type of a group. So again, I think we all know what the options are when the offer gets presented. They can accept it, they can reject it, or they can counter. Seller must not counter more than one offer at a time. She or he will risk selling the house more than once. I'm not really sure, Maggie, jump in on that because I didn't create this panel and I'm not really sure. You're saying the seller must not agree to more than one offer or
Yeah,
counter?
so what that means is that if I have two offers that are pretty much the same, and I countered both of them saying, we accept your offer, except for the price to be, and to two of them, they could both say yes, and I've created a problem. I can only be countering, saying I accept, even if there's an exception, if I'm willing to move forward. Same reason I can't go out with a buyer and write two purchase offers, because then you could be on the hook for buying two houses. So you can only deal with one contract acceptance at a time.
Mhm.
So you got to pick the one you want to work with.
Yeah.
And follow it to its conclusion, which is why in a multiple offer situation, you want to keep people in backup positions and keep those lines of communication open until things have crossed through inspections.
Which could bring us to the topic of subsequent offers. You've accepted an offer, you're a listing agent, you've accepted the offer. And now Maggie comes trotting in with another offer that's way better. And of course, you got to tell the seller about it. And they're like, we want to accept that. You can accept that offer, but there are legal issues that are going to arise. So in our open paragraph, we're going to write in the words that this offer is contingent upon all previous offers being declared null and void and all escrow money returned. And then we're immediately going to take it to our attorney and let them fight it out. So if a better offer does come in and you've already accepted some, you shouldn't really say to the other agent, I can't even entertain your offer. But if your client wants to accept it, then you're on red alert. So just be careful what you do.
Hey, Steve, excuse me.
Yes.
Paul has a question about escalation clauses. He said, I guess I don't understand an escalation clause. Is that put in the contract and says something like my offer is 150, but I'm willing to pay 155 if needed?
It's pretty much like that. Mostly what it says is you attach it like an addendum to the contract, and it'll state in there that we are willing to go X number of dollars over the asking price or over the best offer, but will not exceed a certain number. Does that make sense? It's
in increments, so they could be 500, 1,000, 1,500, or if you're smart, $1,507 or some weird number, because it gives you this weird little edge over the. So your offer is 150. So say the list price is 150, and you offered 150. We're willing to go up in increments of $1,507 over the next highest offer that has to be verified. And there's a form for this from Howard Hanna, the lawyers have worked out for us, up to a cap of 160 or whatever.
And again, don't go it alone.
Don't go it alone. And don't write your own escalation clause. There is one that exists. Do you have one in your area, Steve? Do you have one, Jen?
Yeah.
We all have the
Don't
same
create one.
Don't create one. It's legalese. So
it's-
see your manager about your escalation clause, and it's very specific, and you want to make sure you have all the pieces.
Yeah, and it's not real complex, but it's.
Yeah, folks in the chat want to see an example, and Paul is also saying, do you put in an escalation clause if your buyer is willing to pick up some seller costs?
Say that second part again.
Do you put in an escalation clause if your buyer is willing to pick up some seller costs?
No.
So that's two different things.
Yeah, that's two different things. All right, I'm going to exit full screen and see if I can go find a escalation clause that I can put on the other screen. Escalation.
Steve, do you all use a Howard Hanna form? Or is it an MLS form?
I use the Howard Hanna form.
Okay.
And we use the we recommend you use the Howard Hanna form, guys. Again, this is managers. If you're writing any offers, number one, soon as you have your listing appointment or your buyer's appointment, your manager needs to know you have those appointments. Once you start writing contracts, your managers need to be looking those contracts over in all the addenda and making sure you have all your pieces parts and explaining anything about those contracts. Better yet, if they're willing to accompany you on those appointments, that's even better. And ask.
Excuse me, Maggie. Chelsea just wrote in the chat, I just had an escalation clause come in with 2 offers last night, and the figure was higher than what any houses would probably appraise for in that neighborhood. So my sellers ended up choosing a different offer.
You do have to be realistic. You know, now if somebody's coming in cash, nice, we don't have to worry about the appraisal. But you do have to say to your seller, okay, we got an escalation clause, but what always embarrassed me is if I list a property at $300,000 and it sells for $325,000 and my seller's like, Steve, that's great. You said it was worth $300,000 and we got $325,000, you know? But given the way the market is right now, that's just the way things happen. And there's a little part of me that suspects that sometimes agents put a price in there that's real yummy looking, hoping they're going to get multiple offers, and that'll drive the price up. But that's a good point, Jen. You do have to worry about the appraisal. Can everybody see the escalation clause now? Is it on the screen? Okay. So that's basically it. Anybody got any questions about the way that's worded? Pretty simple, but pretty effective.
Yeah, and I just put in the chat, we will be including a copy of that along with the PowerPoint after class.
Yeah.
Just so everybody has the form.
Yeah, this is another panel that I did not create, and never advise or allow a seller to counter offer simultaneously on more than one offer, which is basically what we do. You know, you can counter back to everybody and say, I got to have $300,000. And if everybody comes to $300,000, then maybe it's terms, or maybe it's conditions or dating or whatever. Or, you know, you can go back to everybody and say, everybody came in at $300,000. Give me your highest and best, and we'll make a decision from there. So I'm not sure, you know what, when it says here, the buyer and you will end up in court. I mean, I think you'll end up in court when you accept multiple offers that are exactly the same, or not even exactly the same, doesn't matter. Is that right, Maggie, or am I off base in the way I'm interpreting this? You're muted.
Sorry, I was looking at my escalation clause. I think looks a little different than yours. What was your question? Sorry.
Well, this panel that I have up on the screen now about never advising a seller to counteroffer simultaneously. I mean, I've seen that done. I think the issue is don't accept more than one offer on your property at any given time.
Well, in our contract, to have a counteroffer, you have to say we accept your offer with these exceptions. So that is an acceptance, and they have the opportunity to then say yes. So you can't do that on 2 contracts. You can't say accept with this counter.
And again, I would say check with your manager to see what your local market rules are, because I do believe this slide may have come out of Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
And every region, state is going to have different nuances. So better part of valor, ask your manager, ask your manager, ask your manager.
Yeah, but if you have to check the box that says we accept, that's when you can't do that on more than one contract.
Just don't ask your manager when they're golfing or in their gin and tonics or something. Come on.
You guys should all have a weekly or bi-weekly meeting with your manager set up so that whether it's Zoom or in person, where you're talking things through it because you're all new,
Yep.
and having some conversations about stuff so that you're not in your during business hours, 9 to 5.
Yep, I agree.
Respect people's time.
Seller can decide that he or she does not wish to entertain your offer in light of his current negotiation. It's the seller's prerogative, not the realtor's. That's common. We all know that, right? We put their best interest in front. But you know what? Our job also is to protect them from themselves to a degree. So, we might have to be persuasive sometimes if they're not quite seeing the forest for the trees. Code of ethics. Response to inquiries from buyers or cooperating brokers shall, with the seller's approval, disclose the existence of offers on the property. Where disclosure is authorized, realtors shall also disclose if asked whether offers were obtained by the listing licensee or another licensee in the listing firm or by a cooperating broker. I don't know, that seems pretty plain. Does anybody have any questions on that? I want to get directly to some of the stuff that we feel, okay, this is where I wanted to be able to express my hang-ups. In summary, buyer and seller consultation, including a preview of forms we will be using, as well as educating them to current market conditions. I think this is really important. I think you should do it. Now, do you have to do it on the first meeting? No, you don't have to. And in fact, in the weird world that we live in, I'd be a little bit careful about taking a phone call and going out and showing a property to somebody you've never met. Now, I've always felt like I'm a tough guy, and I don't have anything to worry about. But I remember a few years ago, I wasn't doing a showing of a property, but I was doing a BPO for an insurance company. And I went into this house in Albany, and they had this back porch. It was like a sun porch. And I wanted to look at the basement because I had to look at the heating system and the electrical and all that. So the guy says, and he was this little skinny, wisp of a guy. And he seemed nice enough, a little quirky, but nice enough. So, and it was a summer day, hot, hot, hot. And he takes me out onto this back porch, this like summer porch, and he pulls back this rug, and he's got one of those doors that opens up that you go down in. And so down I go, and he comes down with me, and it's this like dirt cellar, and it's got wooden beams. It's really old, and I'm writing down stuff like, okay, it's a Will McLean gas boiler, and I look at him, and he's got an ice pick, and he's like hitting the wood pillar with his ice pick, just like stabbing it, while I'm kind of talking, and I'm thinking, all of a sudden I got really weirded out, and I'm thinking, I know I can take this guy, but if he stabs me with that thing, what is going on here? I just looked at him, and I kept writing his stuff. So then when we getting ready to go back up the stairs, he like puts his hand like, go ahead. He's still got the ice pick in his hand. He's like, go ahead. And I'm going, no, you go first. You're fine. You're fine. So he went up before I did, but it was like really weird. And I thought to myself, you know what? We can get ourselves into some really crazy situations. So while I'm stupid enough to, if you called me up and said, hey, Steve, can I go see such and such a house? I'd probably go do it. I would go do it. But I would say I wouldn't recommend doing it. It's probably not a smart thing to do. So it's nicer to be, for somebody you were referred to, and a lot of times my agents will come in here and go, hey, Steve, I'm showing a house over at 217 McEnany Road. I'm supposed to show it at 12 o'clock. As soon as I walk out of that house, I'm going to text you and let you know that I'm out. So then invariably it's like 2:45 and I haven't seen a text, and I have to text them and say, hey, is everything okay? But they have systems for that. Maggie's probably going to tell us about that because I haven't been very.
I was just going to say, you can always take another agent with you, or you can take a spouse or somebody like that with you. if you can meet them at like a Tim Hortons or something around the corner before you meet them actually at the house. And I've said to people, I'm a female. They'll say, well, can't you meet me at the house? I say, I don't know you. And, times are weird. And I like to meet people in a safe place first. And I don't know the house and I don't know you. Everybody know what a cop thinks the most dangerous place to go is?
The house.
A home.
Yeah.
You're not on your terrain, you're on their terrain. So be careful putting yourself in that situation. If you can take somebody with you, great. If you can get them to meet you in a public place first and kind of give some sort of assessment of them, great. Just be very careful.
Yeah. So the best.
Your phone, some sort of emergency thing, and Howard Hand in the Bop Shop has an alert thing that you can buy for like $35. There are things you can do to protect yourself. Just be smart. Just be smart. I've done stupid. And like Steve, after the fact was like, well, that was dumb. This could have really gone really badly. Because I'm standing in a field with a man I've never met, and it's 4 feet tall, and he's making some innuendo about how cute I am, which is, I gotta say, frankly, is not something that happens to me. So I was like, oh crap.
Happens to me all the time, Maggie, all the time. I actually did have a guy hit on me one time.
Be careful.
Yeah. So, so the bottom line is have the buyer consultation. That'll eliminate that, because now they've gotten to know you. You introduce them to the administrative assistant as they come into the office. People see you with them. If they don't come in for a buyer consultation, maybe that should be a red flag for you.
And with COVID, it's actually made it easier. And really, you need to have pre-approval, pre-qualification before you're taking a buyer any place. So, and you can say, listen, it's a seller's market and it's COVID. We need to get our ducks in a row before we go out and look at houses.
That's what Kathleen Nolan calls a Corona bonus. It's working for us in that case. Pre-qualification on there. Okay, so now look at that third line right there. Stare at it for like hours, please. Just stare at it. Stare at it. Oh my Lord. If I see contracts with blanks in it, I feel like this is what I want to say, because I can get if I want to be. Sitting in my house, trying to get me to sign a purchase offer, or let's say a purchase offer more so, and there's blanks in it, I'm going to be looking at you and go, are you kidding me? You want me to sign this with these blanks in here that anybody can put whatever they want in there? I mean, I don't want that to happen to you, And the other thing is, I don't want to see your contract go to an attorney and the attorney looking at it going, all these blanks in here. Who did this thing? Who wrote this purchase offer?
And if you're checking off addenda, make sure you actually have the addenda.
Right.
I have seen many contracts with a check mark with no addenda. Which one is king, the check mark or the addenda?
Right. And which brings me, by the way, to the point that you do not have to include addenda with your contract. A contract will stand on itself, but you may be asked to later on produce the agency disclosure. You shouldn't be including your agency disclosure with your contract. You do not have to include your property condition disclosure with your contract. You don't have to include these things, but you do have to be able to produce them. If somebody says, did you disclose this? Did you disclose that? You've got to have those forms. So that being said, don't try that. Most agents like to see them with the contract. So when your contract comes over, they're going to want to see the lead paint has been signed. They're going to want to see that the property condition disclosure has been signed. They're going to want to see that stuff, the escalation clause, if that's part of it. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. But please, no blanks at all. So what do you put in the blanks? You put in X's or cross them out or something, The next one, I may get a couple of my colleagues here on this call might disagree with me, but here's the thing. Prevailing rate. If prevailing rate is a good way to treat the maximum interest rate that your buyer client wants to pay if they get a mortgage, prevailing rate means what? Whatever the current rate is, whatever. I don't know, might be 7, might be 9. What if it goes to 12? You're still obligated, right? Prevailing rate, as long as you still qualify. I don't want to do that. I want a hard percentage in there. So what's the current rate right now? Maybe 2.875, something like that. So I would put in 3%, or maybe I put 3.25%, but I put a number in there. I think prevailing rate is wrong. I think it's irresponsible. Anybody have any counters to that?
I agree completely.
Jen?
All depends on how you were taught.
No, it doesn't.
And check with your attorney, who you love to use, how they like to see it.
No.
You're right. You're right. Steve, you're right. I was always a prevailing rate per deed gal. Shame on me.
No, stop. You're
But
wonderful.
you are right that you should put a hard number in there, because
Yeah,
you don't want to
And I
get
call the
anything.
loan officer and ask him what that high number should be. I call your loan officer if you're a buyer, and I ask them, where do you want that range? And I get that number from them.
Excellent idea. Excellent idea. A quick call, and then you're reestablishing your good connection with your loan officer. I like that. That's great. Now the other thing too is like where we put in there, we describe the lot size. I think do all the other contracts have lot size included? Yeah. So I see people putting as per deed. Really? As per deed. Perfect. Acre, 2 acres, 20 acres, 1.5 acres. Come on, do some research. Just put in there, put the lot size in there, 125 by 175 by whatever, plus or minus 1 acre, 2 acres. What? I mean, give them something. Do a little research.
All
Hey,
easily
okay.
available on your tax records, guys. All easily available.
Yes. Hard dates for contingencies. Not 3 weeks after the attorney's approval. Not 15 days after my hunchback brother straightens out. Not whatever. I mean, you gotta give us a hard date, and then that way we know when it's September 27th, we should have gotten the structural inspection done. Oh, what day is it? It's September 27th. Oh, okay, structural today, not 3 weeks from acceptance. Well, when was actual acceptance? Because we had the attorney's approval thing, we went back and forth. Now nobody knows. And also, do we count Groundhog Day? Because Groundhog Day in some states, I think, is probably a holiday. So I don't think that we can really call that a business day. So you get what I'm saying? Hard dates. Now, here's another thing that drives me crazy. Does everybody use zip forms? Are we using zip forms? Anyway, you have the electronic contracts where you do it on your computer. So then you get all this work done, and then you write stuff in with a pen. Maybe the dates or whatever. I got to see this stuff to be initialed. It's got to be initialed. I'll see, like, for example, the washing machine was supposed to be included, and there's a line through it. Obviously it was done with a pen. So I'm looking at it and go, who drew that line in there? Did the buyer draw that in there? Did the seller draw that in there? Did somebody who was just like maybe going down to Starbucks to get themselves a latte? Did they draw the line through there? I don't know who drew the line through there. What are we doing here? So to me, I want, if there's two buyers and two sellers, I want to see 4 sets of initials in there. Were you going to say something to that, Maggie?
I was just going to say, you can add initials everywhere. Any change, all changes, including initials on somebody's name, must be initialed by all parties. Everybody's aware of it. And I had a realtor who's very experienced in my area, and I changed things because of her. Like on our PCD, it's a 6-page document, and they used to have initials on the bottom of every page, and they don't anymore. She now hand puts in initials on every page because she once had a client who said, hey, I never saw this page 3.
Right.
I hear that, and I believe Terry Watson only have a problem once, so I make sure there's initials on every single page if there's not a signature.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I ask them to initial each page. So, and the other thing too is the bottom of the last page of that document, I put the property address down there because that's where the signatures are. There's no space for a property address. So what I envision is that piece of paper getting dropped on the floor in here, and I walk through and I go, I don't even know who this goes to because I can't read the signatures. I don't know the names necessarily. So I like to have the address on there too.
That's a great idea. So these are the things that when you're listening to agents who've been doing things for a while, you're going to hear things. Don't even have the problem once. Just change, your standard process on day one. So I'll add that now. I'll put that. That's a great point. I'll put that address on that page. You can do all this stuff even electronically. It's super easy.
Yep, it sure is. Now, the other thing I want to talk about when you're putting together the purchase offer, and then the bottom here says, first and foremost, become intimately familiar with the forms. And I think Maggie, talking to you about reading the contract, how many times?
Every
Once
week
a
for a
week?
year. Once a week
Yeah.
for the first year, and then
Yeah,
pretty regularly afterward.
yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is, okay, so now you're going to sit down with your buyer and they've looked at the house, they said they like it, and they want to write a purchase offer. And they're familiar with the form because you've had your buyer consultation with them. So now they're going to turn and look at you and go, so how much do you think we should offer? So what's your answer going to be? Well, one of the things that I've started to do is I use the Howard Hanna presentations. Are you guys into that yet? Okay, so I go into that Howard Hanna presentation, create new, and I put the MLS number of the subject house in there. And so that spills all the details of the house into my presentation, and then it brings up comparables. So I can use the comparables, both active and sold, to either contest or to support the asking price of the property they're thinking that they're going to maybe put a purchase offer in on. And I email it to them so they have it like right away. You can use the same thing with the Howard Hanna mobile app, which is basically like HomeSnap, basically like that. You can do a quick CMA for them and send that to them. So I think that is a fantastic way for you to help them come to a conclusion on how much they should, what kind of a purchase offer they should make. So think about the Howard Hanna presentation for that. Now, the other really cool thing, it's a little bit different. This is off the purchase offer thing, but is the buy side CMA. So the Howard Hanna presentations as a CMA, that's historical, right? But the buy side thing is right now. This is what the buying public is looking at right now. So you can also use the buy side and get a better feel of what people are looking for. So anyway, that's the one question the first question they're gonna ask you. And the other question they're gonna ask you is, how much earnest money? Okay, we call it escrow money, earnest money, whatever. How much do we have to put down? How much do we have to put down? What's your answer going to be on that? How do you figure that out? Well, if you were selling a $75,000 house, maybe $500 will do it. But if you're selling a $750,000 house, I don't think you're going to get away with a $500 deposit, escrow money. So you got to kind of have to think about that sort of thing. There are no standard formulas or anything for that. Like I said, you don't have to have any earnest money. It could be $250. It could be $0. It could be $1,000. It could be $5,000. You may want to make your offer look stronger. So you may say, I'm going to put $50,000 into the escrow account to make it look legit, but Meg?
Yeah, I was going to say, especially in a seller's market, a lot of people are still just doing like a $5,000 deposit. If your person has 10, 20, 30, $40,000 down, it's an escrow deposit, they're serious. They got skin in the game. They want the house. And it's going to be accepted over somebody with a smaller offering who may be willing to walk away, especially on a $750,000 house. They may be willing to walk away from $5,000. Me, not in a million years. A lot of people, it's nothing. It's chump change. So you've got to think in the mind of the seller, what makes the biggest impact? Emotional impact. Boy,
Yep.
they're putting $50,000 down. Boy, they're serious.
Now, if I see, this is just like give you a little bit of a warning if you're the listing agent. So I got a guy who comes in, and we won't have this problem with Howard Hanna because we're very good with our earnest money and our escrow account. But if I see a guy come in with $50,000 and then he writes us he gets his attorney to write a letter a couple of days later and cancel the contract, wants their money back. So the broker writes a check back to the purchaser and gives them their $50,000 back out of their checking account. And then the check bounces, right? And there's these scams going on where people try to do that. They make the purchase offer, they put in an inordinately high escrow amount in, cancel the contract, and they will find some of the smaller brokers who don't, may not be, light on their feet and trying to, figure out what's going on. They end up writing a check, and then they find out that the original $50,000 check didn't clear. So just look at that and try to understand there's a possibility of some bad things happening here. Mortgage amount under that contingency. Obviously, we've got to explain. Did you have a question, Sonia? Maybe not. If Sonia, if you do have a question, I think you've got we have a reception thing with your mic, so maybe if you could type in.
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Yeah, no, I don't have any questions. I'm not sure what's going on with my phone. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, no problems, no problems. I just wanted to make sure you had a chance if you did have a question.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, yep. With the mortgage amount, understand and explain to your client that that's the maximum amount that they can apply for. All right, so when you're explaining the contract to them, and say, for example, they're buying a house, just for the sake of discussion, $100,000, and they're getting a $90,000 mortgage, they can't come back and say, hey, we got turned down for our mortgage. Oh yeah, what'd you apply for? $95,000 or $99,000 or whatever. That's a violation of the contract. They can apply for less, but they can't apply for more. So they put the maximum amount in. So if when you're writing it up, they say the maximum amount, but they say to you, but I may go for less. Is that okay? Oh yeah, you can go for less. But if they say we might have to go for more, you go, no, you got to put the maximum in. All right, so does that make sense to everybody? And also the rate, I talked about prevailing rate, and also what type of loan. And you can check all the boxes so that they can leave it wide open if they want to. They're going to go for VA, they're going to go for FHA, they're going to go for conventional. I mean, you can check all of those, but really, and what we want to know is, are they going to go for a conventional, or are they going to go for FHA, or are they going to do a Sunny May or whatever? So make sure you check the one that you think you're really going to use. Can they go and do something else later? Yeah, they can probably change it if they find out that there's a better deal out there, but they have to notify us and let us know. Let's see, will there be inspections? When I'm representing a buyer and you go to the lead disclosure and there's an option. Kim, did you have a question? I saw the box light up there, so I feel like this is Hollywood Squares or something like that. I wish Paul Lynn was in the middle. Teresa's in the middle. Teresa can be Paul Lynn, but that's her Amazon box smiling at me here.
I have a question before you go to inspection section. Can you explain about seller's concession a little bit?
Sure. Good question. And I actually don't think I was going to be addressing that. Yeah, seller concession is can be a real problem for both sides. because they don't understand it. Basically, what we're saying is this buyer has the ability to make the mortgage payment that's described in this transaction, but does not necessarily have enough money for the acquisition costs of the property. So in other words, they need help. So if we have the property on for $100,000 and my seller needs another $2,000 to be able to facilitate what all our closing costs are, prepayables, everything, then my seller is going to get $100,000 less $2,000. So my seller is actually going to net 98. You with me so far? Okay, so what happens a lot, asking price is $100,000, and the guy says, I need to get $100,000 out of this. Buyer says, yeah, but I need $2,000 for my closing costs. So what do? All right, offer 102, and I'll net 100, and I'll be happy. Sometimes the seller goes, well, if they can pay 102, if my house can pass for 102, then I want 102, and I want all of it. So sometimes people get a little, it's money, right? So they get kind of greedy. They want all of it. But you have to explain to them that the buyer has the need to have assistance with their closing costs. So sometimes sellers are like, if they can't do this, then I'm starting to worry about this. Because I had one not too long ago down in Delmar, New York, where we were getting our net, but the people wanted $15,000 in closing costs. So we did the price and we got them so they got their net. It wasn't the full asking price, but it was where they were happy. And it took them a day and a half to kind of see the light and to see, you have to explain to your seller, look at the bottom line. Just look at the bottom line. You're getting what you're getting. It doesn't matter how we get there. You're getting what you're getting. And I made that mistake many years ago with a guy in Albany. I got the contract and there was a seller concession. I didn't read the seller concession. So it's $215,000. So I called him up. His name was Larry. I go, Larry, we got $215,000 off because that's great. This was when we used faxes. So I faxed it over to him and he goes, hey, he says there's $7,000 there at the bottom of this page. And I'm like, oh no, I didn't read it completely. And he goes, well, that's okay, Steve. He says, you can make up the $7,000 for me. Luckily, he was a friend of mine and it was okay and we worked it through. But you've got to look at the contract thoroughly and understand what the net is going to be to the seller. Does that help at all? If it does, I don't know how it does because it took me years to understand it. Okay, so lead hazard. What I don't want you to do on that is they can do it if they want to. Do not tell your seller to waive the lead inspection. There's a 10-day opportunity for them to do the inspection. They say they don't want to, so they're going to check the waive. They can waive it if if that's the way they want to, but don't you say to them, waive it, check there. Because if somebody comes up with some type of a lead issue in their family or in their lives, they're going to say, Steve told me not to check that. Steve told me to waive it. And you don't want that. So make sure that they check it. If they don't want to do it, that's fine. That's their prerogative. They got 10 days to do it. Actually, any of the other inspections, that's the way it goes for any of the other inspections. Are the bankers requiring a well inspection?
Depends on where you live.
Okay. So you could buy it and not have.
In Canandaigua, we're in a watershed.
Okay.
This is Dan. I had to do a complete well inspection when I sold a house.
A requirement by the bank?
Yeah. Shoot. I think it was. It was like 15 years ago, though.
Loan. It can, if you got a USDA, VA, or FHA, it will be required.
Oh, you know what? No, I think the buyer required it.
Okay.
Because she paid cash for the property.
Yeah, I was just wondering if, say, for example, your buyers had said to you, okay, Dan, we're going to buy the house. You go, hey, we got a well here. Yeah, we know. Well, are you going to have it inspected? No, we're not worried about it. We're going to buy it. And then all of a sudden you go, okay, that's great. And then they get the appraisal done or whatever, and they say, hey, we need a copy of the well test. So we didn't do one. Then the bank goes, well, you're going to have to do one. They wouldn't say well first because that would sound like they were trying to be funny. But
Yeah, it's
I also
more likely to happen with a USDA, FHA, or VA
yeah.
than a conventional. But some of them still, if in a watershed district, might ask for that. So you're going to have to ask the bank that you're dealing with when you're writing purchase contracts. We've got a well. Do we need to make any recommendations or have these inspections? Just talk to your loan officer. Create great relationships there.
yeah. One of the best things that happened to me when I started out in the business, and this is a little bit off the beaten path of where we're going here, and I'll get back on track, I promise you, but, and I thought we were going to be done well before 12 o'clock, but I guess there's more to talk about than I thought. But when I first got into the business, I would go to the staff meetings, and of course they weren't video, they were right in the office. And I sat there and I'm looking around going, I have no clue what these people are talking about. I was like, I was afraid to ask any questions, but I just kept listening. I was like trying to be a sponge. And I just want to say to you, if you're on these meetings with your office or you're going in and you're not quite sure what the heck is going on, don't worry about it. It will come to you eventually. And the other thing that I loved, and it was going on Caravan, because then you're sitting in the car and you're listening to these guys and gals talking about different things in the houses and stuff that happened to them. And it's really great just to listen to all that stuff. Because your manager is, especially if it's a Howard Hanna manager, is top shelf, knows everything. But you know what? Who really knows everything are the people that are out there in the trenches. So you listen to them, and Maggie will probably agree with me. Sometimes we worry about new agents listening to some of our agents that we have because you might pick up some bad habits. But for the most part, you're going to hear some pretty good stuff out there.
So sometimes you learn what not to do, and sometimes you learn what to do. But by being in the presence of your office and your office agents and your manager, you hear all of these stories and you can learn from those stories. You can also share those stories with no names as examples as you're building your repertoire of stories, because you will get them. So those stories can help you seal a deal by saying, hey, listen, a guy in my office told me the story, and you tell this story to help make a point. So I think we need to do this, and here's why.
Yeah, and I love that. Maggie, I'm so glad you brought that up. When you're new, you feel like, they're going to be like, well, how much of experience do you have? And you aren't going to be able to answer some of these questions, but something will come up, or you can even bring something up and say, experience in our office has shown, I've heard other agents talking about this, or my manager told me about this. They understand that you're getting some legitimate experience vicariously, and that's going to help you. Which will also bring
them as my team. From my team,
yes.
These are the things that I've learned. So this is what my team teaches me. You're not just you, you're getting my team.
That's a nugget right there. That is something that, if you don't take anything away from today's little chat, that's something that I think is going to help you, and it did help me, so that's great. Let's see here, attorney's approval. Oh, as far as your inspections are concerned, make sure you explain to your buyers that all of these inspections are going to be done, and these are what are called contingencies. And so that means that if the inspection fails, we have a right to withdraw our offer. We also have, in the Albany contract, I know we have a right for a 10-day figure out what we're going to do clause. But by the same token, I've been told by attorneys that even though we have 10 days to solve a structural issue, the buyer can still say, I'm not interested in discussing anymore. I'm out of there. So I don't know how that is in other parts of the state.
We put in our own dates. And one of the things a lot of agents do, traditionally sellers pay for well and septic inspections. Because of a lot of conversations with seasoned agents, I've now changed that. I ask my buyers to buy those. My own personal experience, my house that I live in now was supposed to have had a septic inspection and have been cleaned and inspected. And we had the paperwork that said it was done. Within a year, we had the sewer backing up. And when they came out to clean it as an emergency in February, they said, there's no way in the world that this was cleaned.
Wow.
So I tell my buyers that, and they say, you do it, then you know you have got complete control. And if something falls apart, it's a few $100s well spent.
That's SOP here in Albany. That's everybody, the buyers pay basically for every inspection. Now, the one thing that you can do in the contract, I don't know what your threshold is for your structural inspection, but around here, it's at $1,500. However, if you were in the throes of negotiation and you seem to have some type of difficulty with that, you can change it one way or the other with mutual consent, as long as everybody agrees. So you might raise the threshold to $2,000 or maybe $2,500 if it's going to make the seller feel a little bit easier about having inspections done.
We can have it be from 0 to whatever number, but it has to be accepted.
Yours is wide open?
Ours is wide open.
Oh, wow.
But
because
right now you're seeing a lot of zeros because sellers have the upper hand.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Attorney's approval, again, we talked about that before. It's a couple of days, can be mutually agreed on. Now, here's the one thing that, one of my hangups, I didn't even put it in the panel here, but when you get an escrow check, when you get a signed agreement, and I find out about it, and I call you up and I say, I understand you got a purchase offer accepted on such and such. Why don't I have this paperwork? Oh, well, we haven't got attorney's approval yet. I don't care. We have an agreement. So what's happened when a seller client and a buyer client have agreed, you've engaged the broker, not just you, but the broker. So we're responsible. If something happens to you, we're responsible to be able to produce that contract and to be able to produce that escrow money. So a lot of times I see agents bringing escrow money in a week later or whatever, and I'm after them and say, look, I got this contract and it says I'm supposed to have, oh, well, we have got attorney's approval, or I'm going to wait until after the structural inspection. No. When you get that money, get it to the office as soon as possible. When you get that agreement put together, don't say to your manager, oh, we don't have a contract because we haven't done an attorney's approval. You got a contract. Get it to your office.
In our area, it's a hard date, and it's 2 days from, you have 2 calendar days from the day the purchase offer is accepted.
Is that what we are now, Jen? I know they've been changing it.
I don't know, but you're right. It's people get very lax and lazy, and it's a really bad practice.
Well, it's a violation of your fiduciary obligation to your client,
Right.
to its lack of care, which, we're not supposed to do. But I think, Jen, it was someplace, well, it's between 24 and 72 hours because they've had this, what about weekends kind of thing going on, so it used to be 72. I think it's 24 now. But please, please, please be good boys and girls. Now, you're going to have trouble also because you're going to be the listing agent and you're going to get the offer accepted and they're going to say to you, yeah, okay, we'll mail you the check or I'll drop it off or whatever. And then the deal falls apart, right? The deal falls apart and the seller goes, you know what? I'm not going to give them their deposit back. And then all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, I never got it. And you got to tell them that? Are you kidding me? I mean, you're going to be in deep weeds. And then you're going to go to your manager. Like Maggie always said, and Jen said, oh, go to your manager, go to your manager. I don't want to see you. I don't even want anything to do with you. I don't even know you. So please take good care of that.
And when the minute you have a purchase offer contract, if you're a listing agent or you're a buyer's agent, your manager and your admin need to get those contracts the minute the ink is dry.
Yeah.
Whether you're scanning them or taking them to your offices, you need to transmit them to your office immediately.
Yes.
So that they can see if there are problems. You have many sets of eyes. If you're only using your new eyes on these contracts, you are making a grave mistake. Do not do it. Get them to your managers and admins immediately.
Yep.
I've seen some really lovely problems from some new agents who thought they had it all covered.
Yeah.
It was not
So
so
what's
much.
what's gonna happen is, we're gonna end up, Department of State comes wandering in. And by the way, my wife just said she read an article about someplace down in Long Island now. Yeah, Jen, so they're checking on discrimination violations?
Newsday, if everybody Googles, take the time and Google the Newsday discrimination is all you have to put in. They did an expose 2 years ago of yeah, it was bad. Redlining, discrimination in Long Island. They mic'd up and videoed up secretly testers all throughout Long Island. And take the time to watch the video. It's a video, and because of that Newsday story, a lot of these agents are now being brought before the judgment day has come. Legal
They'll
action,
scare you straight.
yeah, legal action is being imposed against these agents and brokers. It's very appalling. It's painful to watch, but
Yeah.
I urge everyone to take the time and watch it. It's something else. And because of that story that Newsday ran, a lot of these agents are now having to pay the piper, literally.
And they will show up at somebody's open house or whatever at some point, and you're not going to know who they are. They are
Right.
very good at their jobs. They're anonymous, and they can be anonymous, and they're doing good work. They are out there trying to protect the public, and it's your job as a realtor. You can have whatever opinion you want. You can't act on it. You need to act on fair housing. And you need to speak to it and speak publicly to fair housing all the time in your personal Facebook and social media. Be very careful. You are now held to a higher standard.
And that applies to all the other stuff we talked about, the proper execution of all these forms, the lead disclosure, property condition disclosure, agency disclosure, all of those things. And we, a couple of years ago, actually when I owned my own firm a few years back, a guy walked into the office. He says, "I'm from the Department of State. I need to see 10 of your pending files." Now, he allowed me to choose the files, but he was looking for the lead. That was when the lead disclosure thing was coming out. That's what he was looking for. And they send people out to do that. And, as I say to my agents, I said, I like you a lot, but I don't want to share a jail cell with you. So how about we just do the things the way we're supposed to do it, and it'll be nice. But our job, seriously, Maggie, I know, can attest to this. And Jen, although she's not really a manager, she watches over stuff like this. We're out here to protect you too. So if we see you kind of goofing up and maybe forgetting about some of this stuff, we're going to help you with it. So that's the way that works. COVID disclosures, take them seriously. Take them seriously. Do them every time. I know it's just one more form for you, but do them. Affiliate company, I see that a lot, not being filled out. We need to disclose that we are affiliated. That's the RESPA form. I would assume it looks the same all the way across the state. Let's get that in there every time. Your agency disclosure has to be signed, is not supposed to be included with your purchase offer. But if you get a purchase offer and somebody's got the agency disclosure in there, that's fine. And then if you're presenting a purchase offer and you haven't included it with yours, and they say, hey, where's your agency disclosure? You can say, well, we don't have to include that. In fact, we're told we're not supposed to include that. And I say, well, no, you got to have it. My manager told me you got to have it. Give them the disclosure. Just give it to them. You know, because what do we want to do? We would like to go to a closing. We can't go to a closing unless we get the offer accepted. If we get the offer accepted, then we can go to closing and we can fight with them over a beer someday, right? I don't think I have anything else that I need to sign to. Oh, get this. I'm presenting an offer to Maggie, and she says to me, I probably going to email it to her, and I got $1,000 check. I send her a copy of the check. She wants me to bring the check to her office. I am not going to give anybody my check until my client's check, until I have signatures, until I have a meeting of the minds, and so initials and signatures. Then I'll give it to Maggie. I'll take it right over to her. But if you give it to Maggie, and then we try to negotiate, and then it doesn't go through, and my buyer says to me, hey, I need my check back. So I call Maggie and go, oh, I need that check back. Oh, you know what? I shredded it. Or, oh, I'll mail it to you. Oh, I wrote void on, or whatever. I don't know where the check is, and my buyer client's mad. I never turn that check over to the other side until I have signatures and initials. All right?
Totally agree.
I have a
Okay.
question.
Go for it.
So let's say if we send a check to sellers,
You're representing a buyer, right?
buyer,
You're-
I'm representing buyer. And during attorney approval, my buyer decide to back out. Buyer get the check back. right?
You aren't going to get the check back. You're going to get a check that's going to be written out of our escrow account.
Okay.
And we're going to wait for the check that you gave us to clear.
Mhm.
Yep.
Takes
Yes.
about 10 days to 2 weeks generally for you to get all of that process to take place once it's been processed.
Okay,
So
but
one of the things, when I get a check or when I write a check, I write the address in the memo line,
Mhm.
and then so that I know who's that check goes to, what property. I take a picture of it and I send it to the attorney and I send it to the other side, whether I'm the buyer or the listing agent. And I say, I received your check and it's now being processed, but I haven't put in the memo line the address of the property that's being purchased, that's going toward.
Okay. But the bottom line is the buyer is not losing anything.
No, but it's not immediate. So they need to be, no,
but
it's not going to be
they
immediate.
get the money back.
Right. And I like to have the money sent to me so that I can hand it over to my buyer client. So it's written out to my buyer client, but I want it sent to my office so that I can meet with them again and maintain a relationship with them, you know, maybe even put a Band-Aid on it or whatever. But now the other thing I wanted to talk to all you about is new construction. So you and your client go to a new construction site and they want to have a lot hold put down. So they say to your buyer client, we need a check for $1,000 to secure this lot for 10 days. They don't cash that check almost ever. I don't know why, but they just don't. And they even say to the people, we're not going to cash it. We're just going to staple it to the inside of this file, and then we'll give it back to you if somebody else buys it. I'm not real warm and fuzzy about that, but I kind of like, well, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, I guess. So that's kind of how I do that. But it's just, don't be caught off guard by that. They may want to check for $1,000 or $5,000 for a lot hold, and you're going to have to kind of do that. That's the new construction scheme. The last thing I wanted to mention to you is once they've signed that agreement, the purchase offer, what do you think's going on with them for the most part, especially if they're first-time buyers? They are stoked. They're excited. Okay, so you call up me and say, Steve, I got this purchase offer. I'm going to send it to you. It should be in your email right now. Let me know what you think. So I get it, and can't get a hold of my seller. Going to get a hold of him tomorrow morning. So I call you back. I said, look, I'm not going to be able to talk to him until tomorrow morning. Call your buyers and let them know what's going on. Stay in touch with them. They're very excited. They're very anxious. Stay in touch with them. I don't care if it's even just a text. They want to know that you're still on top of it, and they don't. Here's what they won't do. Geez, I don't want to call them. I don't want to sound like I'm too anxious or something like that, but they are anxious. So over communicate with them in that particular scenario. And I'll tell you, as a manager and having been own my own firm for a while, the number one complaint that I would get from a client would be, my agent didn't call me. I would leave messages, they never called me back, or I never heard from them. Listed the house, boom, gone, went ghost. Don't let that happen. It's 8:49. You want to get out early? Can we get out early?
We can, but before we do that, I always like to ask if anybody's got any additional questions. Was there anything
Sure.
that you heard today? And Mallory asked me a
Roman just
question.
had
Yes,
a
no.
question here. Let's see, if buyer gives deposit and transaction is not approved by buyer attorney, can the check be returned to buyer, or does it have to go through the list office, co-broke, and that office sends a check back?
Every once in a while, I get a telephone call. Now, I may have taken a check up today, right? And I get a telephone call, they cancel it right away. So I call my accountant, and Tracy, and I'll say to her, did you submit that check yet? No, we didn't. Oh, all right, don't submit it. I'm gonna come grab it, and then we can send it physically back to them. But if you want to be safe, you got to say to them, here's what's going to happen. It's going into the escrow account immediately. It will have to clear, and then we will write a check out of the escrow account. You will get your money back, don't worry, but it's going to be 10 to 12 days probably.
And make
Roman,
sure
did you want to add something to that?
Maggie?
I was going to say, make sure that when you're getting checks from your buyers, that you're telling them that it's going into a non-interest bearing account. Especially when they're bigger checks, you will have some of your more financially savvy clients will say, what about the interest? If you've already preempted that with, it's going into a non-interest bearing account under the company, they know that it's not getting any interest, and it's going into a non-interest bearing account. It's because we don't want to be caught up with the details of all of those pennies.
And remember this, the check has to be written out to the listing brokerage firm, not to the escrow bank, because every once in a while we use M&T. I'll get a check written out to M&T. Just the other day out in the lobby, she came in, I got the deposit check, $10,000. And I look at it and go, it's written out to M&T Bank. Now she's got to go back and get another one written out to Howard Hanna. Now, there's no law that says that it can't be held by the attorneys. And every once in a while, an attorney goes, I want to hold it for my seller. We try to avoid that, but if that's the way it's got to be, that's the way it's got to be. So don't wig out. Just call your manager and say, hey, they're talking about this escrow money going to the attorney's escrow account, because they're held to the same standard of having a separate account, just like we are. So I don't remember any time when we said, no, you can't do it that way. I've called an attorney and said, are you kidding me? This is the way we do it. We've been doing it forever. Is there a reason you want to do it this way? And they say, no, I'm an attorney and I know everything and you don't. So send me the check.
So for new agents, where do you find the company that you're writing the check? It's in the MLS. It's right under the escrow. There's a line for that.
Depository.
When you get a check, when you are the person who is receiving the check, you want to check and see. People don't know how to write checks anymore. You want to see that the amount is written in the number correctly and that it is written in longhand correctly or printed out correctly. You want to make sure they've signed it and they've put on a date. I have received checks with all of the above missing and just a handwritten number. It's not a check unless you have all of these things. Again, in the memo line, the address for the property it's for, that way if it somehow is separated from the contract, everyone knows this check goes to that property. So you must read the check. I've run out into many parking lots chasing people down going, wait.
Yeah. And no whiteout.
Yeah, you can't.
Oh, really?
I've seen that.
So make sure you're make sure you know how to write a check. If you haven't written a check or you haven't written one in 5 or 10 years, make sure you know how to write one. That makes it easier to check them. So
I can't wait till we start using Venmo.
Oh geez, please.
I went to a farm stand on Saturday that had, it was a self-service with a little cash box, wooden box was cut out in the top. And there was a little plaque that said, or you can use Venmo.
Nice. That's great.
Does anybody else have any questions? Roman, did you have a question? Were you going to have a comment?
I guess what I needed to do is get a little more clarification. Let me explain how this comes about, that I asked that question about the co-broke and the earnest money deposit. So I have this is the same transaction where it was taking forever for the man to become the sole executor. All right.
It's an estate.
Pardon?
So it's an estate.
Yes, for the estate. All right. So we wrote our initial offer. My buyer is from out of town. My buyer sent me the earnest money deposit.
Hey, Roman,
Yes.
I'm going to stop you and I'm going to say, please call Rob.
Yeah,
Ryberg.
I was going to call him anyway.
Yeah, call Rob and ask him
I'll
how he
go
wants
with
that
him.
handled.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
so do that, okay?
Yeah, will do. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay, but that's
I'm
the right
way
way to
past-
go this time.
I've missed, in fact, I think I've missed 2 naps, come to think of it. Jen knows, they call me and I go, hey, it's my nap time. Come on. So I'll tell you, it's a great business. I hope every one of you gets as much enjoyment out of it as I did. I got a couple years left. People ask me when I'm going to retire, like I said in the beginning, and I have no intentions of retiring because I'm having so much fun. And there's a great satisfaction out of helping people, especially first-time buyers. And, I used to feel a little bit guilty about somebody getting a divorce or somebody died or somebody lost their job, those negative things. But you know what? My wife said to me, she goes, Steve, you're still helping them. You get it? You're helping them with that. And I thought, yeah, all right, okay. Because, I used to say to my neighbor, I said, you getting a divorce or anything? Because I might want to list your house or something like that. So anyway, I'm rambling on. It's 11:56, and it's time for all of us to go, right, Maggie?
Yeah. So thank you, Steve. So
Pleasure.
you guys should all be working on your contracts, adding to your databases. Did anybody get out and tour some houses, either virtually or live this week? Show me some hands. Who got out and saw some houses? If you're not seeing houses, you're not building your business. You are to become the local experts. If you want to be good at this business, you must be seeing what your local inventory is and then doing some research. What's the list price? What was the sell price? What's the ratio? What's the price per square footage for a ranch, for a colonial, for a Tudor, for a Victorian, for an 1850 farmhouse? Is it a seller's market in every area of your area, or do you have a buyer's market? It could be in a high end. That might be a buyer's market. It might be in the farm area. That might be a buyer's market. Are you aware of where the difference is, where the line is?
Hey, Maggie, can I
Vendors
just,
and making calls. Go ahead. What?
Arlene had just asked a question of the group.
Let's see it.
This is a lot and it can be super confusing. And she had asked if we should have mentors. My knee-jerk response is stay in very close touch with your manager. Some offices have mentors who are great to work with. Not all offices have them. And you'll usually come up to an agreement where it's a referral, where they're making some money, referral money off of perhaps your first 3 deals. But not all mentors are created equal. I would just, managers are managers because we all enjoy working with agents. A lot of agents are great rainmakers. They're not necessarily great teachers. So ask your manager if you have specific mentors in your office and how the mentoring program works, because it can be great, but I've heard more bad stories than good, frankly, where you're not really getting what you need. So lean on that manager, make an appointment with your manager to meet once a week when you're new.
And Arlene, it is confusing. It was confusing for everyone who started. And here's the advice that I think Jen and I give pretty uniformly. First, talk to your manager, set up those appointments. Get to know the other agents in your office and listen to what they're saying. Sometimes you're going to learn what to do. Sometimes